Hello friends. Today we are looking at a world of pretty lace and super straight backs. That's it. Old-timey rules, but not the nice, please share the cakes kind. No, this is back bracing, ankle hiding, eye avoiding secret rules at their most confusing. And today you are not a great lady with helpers and a soft bed. You are just you. Put into a world with tight clothes, where one wrong elbow could wreck your chance for friends, always. So before you get comfy, please take a second to like this show and follow, but only if you really like what I do here. Please tell me in the notes where you are watching from and what the time is for you. Now, make the lights low, maybe put a fan on for that quiet, fuzzy sound, and let's get into tonight's story. Nice and slow. You are sitting in the front room of an aunt's house you don't know well, a far-off cousin, and rich enough to be helpful. You have been told not to talk unless someone talks to you, not to make loud breathing sounds, and for no reason at all are you to let your back lean on the chair behind you. Because how you sit, that is not just a small thing. It is your future. You sit with your back as straight as a stick. Your hands are folded sweetly in your lap. Your shoulders are pulled back. Your neck is long. And your chin is down just a little. Just enough to seem shy, not mean. Lean on back. That would seem like you are lazy. Cross your legs. How very bad. Not a lazy boat worker. And do not even try to do a big stretch. That is for pets. Back in those days, how you sat was like your report card. A straight back showed you were good, calm, and well-raised. And a bad way of sitting, smart people still talk about if it was seen as a bad choice or a bad spirit, but no matter what, it was thought to be very strange. A girl who slouched was very close to being a problem, or even worse. A show person. Moms taught their girls when they were young. They would put books on their heads to balance while they were sewing things. Some homes even had special chairs to fix. How you sit. They were wooden bad dreams with no place to rest your back, making you hold your tummy muscles like a workout teacher who drank lots of coffee. You would have to sit in that chair for a long time while you sew something pretty you would never use, being watched like a bird by a person named Aunt Agnes. Why all this worry about how you sit? Because your body talked for you before you ever did. There was a whole secret way of seeing things. A chin held up said you felt good, but not too much. Shoulders that were bent over showed you were sad, or just, lazy. That is correct. One of the 7 big no-nos, all from a single lazy shoulder bone. But the close watching was not only inside the house. Oh no, it went with you into coaches, into holy places, into party rooms. Think about going into a party where every single mom there is secretly giving your back a grade at any time. A person might say low behind a fan. What a sad thing about Miss Everly. Her way of sitting has become quite low class these days, and it did not end with the way that you sat. The way you moved your feet was just as watched over. You have to float, not walk hard, not drag your feet. Float. Your feet should just about not come up off the ground, and always with your toes pointing straight, heels making noise. You are pretty much saying you are not a good person. Walking straight had its own special things. Girls were sometimes made to wear back supports, tight, hard wood things tied to their bodies like old-timey armor under their dresses. said to fix a curved back. In truth, they were painful things made to look like goodness. There is even an untrue story of one special school where girls were tied to a wall with pretty strings put through their tight clothes to be sure they did not lean. If the pretty strings got loose, they were hit on their hands with a fan. It is not known if this is a real story or just another story from that time's big book of sad things for girls. But it does feel like it could be true, doesn't it? Now, if you were from a top family, sitting straight was not just made to happen. It was something you were supposed to have as a sign of being fancy at the same time. The working girl, who may have the same calm way from just using her muscles, was told she was trying too much because, being pretty was only pretty when you were born with it, never when you learned it. And here is the part that gets really, really strange. The big worry about sitting straight was not just about looking nice or being fancy. It was tied to your body parts. Truly, doctors, people who were called doctors, said that bad sitting squished your organs, spoiled your girlness, and could even make having babies harder. Everything was about having babies all the time. And still, even with the thought of how key good sitting was, tight clothes, those rib-squishing, lung-squeezing scary things were still what everyone wore. Have you ever tried to sit up straight while your whole top part is being pulled in to the size of a loaf of bread? It is a very special kind of funny that would make a back doctor cry, but the world did not mind. Girls were looked at all the time for how nice their body shape was. That meant sitting so straight you could feel your shoulder bones turning into thinking things by the time you were 16. It was even worse at parties with friends. Let's say you were lucky, or not so lucky, enough to go to a fancy dinner at any time you could think of. You were being watched. Did you sit too near the front of your chair? Did you rest on your elbows when you ate? Did your back bend just a little bit while you ate your soup? The wrong tilt, and you might be talked about for many months? Did you see her at the second part of the meal? I think that she bent. There were even manner books printed by the many, full of very, very clear rules on how to sit, stand, bow, and even sneeze without losing your good name. One even told women to never put their neck down when getting a dropped thing. Bend with your knees and keep the back up straight, so people watching don't think you are trying to flirt. That is correct. Bending over to get your glove was a good or bad choice, so you get used to it. You put up with it. You learn to keep your back hard, even when your feelings are not. You get good at smiling without bending, sitting without sinking, just being without making anyone mad. And somewhere down the road, you see that the back was not just about how your bones lined up. It was about how you lined up with others, and yours had better be like theirs, or else, and let's not miss the problems for your whole life. Many old-timey women grew up to have long-lasting backaches, hurt nerves, and tired muscles, all to be seen as a good person. But at least no one saw them slouching. Still, even when faced with silly things, women found their own quiet ways to fight back. Some put more soft stuff under their dresses to seem more straight up. Others taught themselves to look straight while quietly leaning on walls or tables. And some, with great courage, just beautifully, slouched when nobody was watching, because, at times, staying alive meant acting like you cared about the rules, while secretly letting your back have a rest. You sit straight up, Of course, your sitting is still perfect. Your legs are stuck together, hands folded just right. But now your fingers move just a bit, going toward the little folding fan resting next to your cup of tea. It is your only tool in this front room fight, and you use it not for the warmth, but to send a message. Because in the old-timey world, you are not supposed to say what you are really thinking, especially if you are a girl, not married, and being watched by every bossy ant in a 5-foot space dot. So, what can you do then? You talk with a fan, a pretty, moving, ostrich-feathered truth-telling tool. Hello to the strange and really hard-to-learn language of fans. Now, you may be thinking, this must just be pretty flirting. But oh no, it is a whole secret letter system. A sneaky spying tool that looks like a pretty thing to carry. Because talking right to a man, how very bad. Winking, how daring. Sending him a secret note with your eyes and a little move of your hand, totally okay. As long as no one else saw it. The fan language had a whole list of words. Drop your fan. We should not be seen with each other. Close it up very fast. Please, leave me be. Put it on your right side of your face. Yes, left side. No. Slowly move it over your eyes. Please, forgive me. And if you put it over your heart, I am in love with you. Being quiet was how you stayed safe. Fans were the private notes of that time. Smart people still talk about if every single woman really learned this secret way of talking, or if it was mostly just made up by the people who wrote manner books. Some think it was a sweet love dream made up by bookmakers, trying to sell more picture books about fans. Others say it was real, given down like a family food recipe from an aunt to her niece. Don't matter what, just think about the worry. Because here you are. Fan slow means they are looking at us. Or, I really do not like you. One little mistake, and all of a sudden, you are going to marry the wrong family member. This was not just about being flirty, either. It was how you stayed alive if you wanted to be important. Think about seeing a man across the room who might be a good kind of rich, not totally bad person. Your mother is looking. His mother is too. You cannot talk, but your fan is in your hand, open, half covering your face, moving softly. You look over the top, then close it shut. A note is sent. He understands, or he doesn't. Maybe he just thinks your hand had a cramp, or, even worse, that you are saying you love him forever, when you were really saying, I notice you, and I am interested, but my aunt is just 3 feet from me, and is right now choking on a small cake. That is the problem with old-timey fan talking. It is like a play. Every little move means something. 2. So if you by mistake scratch your nose with the wrong move, you might start a whole week of talk that ends in a spoiled first party season. The fan was not the only pretty thing that was watched so hard, but it was one of the few that gave women a kind of strength, and that is a big thing, because in a world where you could not pick leaders, could not have land unless your husband was gone, and could not walk across a room by yourself, a fan was your secret code, your makeup megaphone, your pretty defense tool. It is also good to say that fans were not low cost. A beautiful laced fan, brought from France and carved with pretty ivory or shiny shell, cost a lot of money. So, not only were you learning a secret way to talk, you were meant to do it with a breakable piece of art held softly between your fingers. If you drop it, break it, just being clumsy, it meant something. Like dropping your good name right there on the shiny wood floor. And fan rules changed based on the time and the place. What was okay in a front room might be too bold for a play or two, quiet for a walk in a garden. Some women even had different fans for different events. One for a holy place, plain and shy. One for parties, showy, maybe with feathers. And one for flirting, very tricky and maybe brought from Spain, because nothing showed a secret like a fan from Spain. There is even a strange idea among clothes-smart people that fan moves were meant to be unclear, giving women a way to deny things if a note was not understood. After all, you could not get in trouble for, by mistake, covering your face and looking through the lace like a bad guy in a quiet movie. And still, even with all its chances for being tricky, the fan was a tool for being good. You had to sit quietly, hold it with a soft hand, move it gently. No fast waving, no wiggling, no using it to hit your little brother who bothers you during garden parties, even if he really should be hit. Using a fan in the right way meant you were fancy, but using it to show feelings meant you were good at it. And when you think of it, this whole system was a trick, a smart, moving act of fighting against the rules it was inside of. Women were not allowed to say what they thought. Secret meetings or nice no's happened without even one word being said. How many plans to marry were helped with a look and a well-planned move of the hand? How many hearts were hurt because someone did not understand a sign, or worse, understood it right and did not want to answer back? And at last, think about this. You are at your final party of the year. The lace on your fan is starting to get worn from being used too much. You have dropped it 2 times tonight already. Once on purpose. Once because you fell over your own big skirt. You see him across the room. The one you tried to send notes to last week. This time, you try one more time. A look, a move, a flick. Maybe he sees it. Maybe he does not. But you hold your fan up high.com. Hard to read. Because even if you are boiling hot inside a dress with 37 buttons, you still know how to say it all without saying a single word. You are getting the hang of the fan. Kind of. At least it gives your hands a thing to do while you try not to make the next big mistake. Which, funny enough, has nothing to do with elbows on a table or bad little bows. No. Tonight's strange rule trap is hidden right under your dress. Or really not hidden, because today we will talk about pockets. Or the very mad-making lack of them. Hello to the old-timey pocket problem. Now, you may believe a pocket is just a spot to put your lip stuff, or that old movie ticket from a long time ago. But in the 1800s, pockets were a big deal, which is very funny thinking they were also little bags sewn inside. Here is the issue. You do not have any. Not good ones. Not like the men have. A long time ago, women used to have pockets, big ones, as well. In the 1700s, they wore them tied around their middle under many layers of skirts, that you could reach through little cuts in the dress. You could keep all kinds of things. Keys, money, a little bite to eat, maybe a mean little note for your sister. But by the time the queen came to rule, a very bad thing happened. What people wore. All of a sudden, shapes got more narrow. Skirts more shaped. The high middle dress style was replaced by big skirts and bottom. Puffs. Dresses became like building plans, and the thought of making a slit in the side of your well-made dress just so you could hold your things. So bad, not right. You are told to hold a reticule, a little fancy purse the size of a small fruit. It is in style, and it carries about 3 items: a piece of money, a name card, and the heaviness of your broken freedom. Smart people still talk about if this change from working pockets was a style mistake or a thought-out way to have power. Some say that by taking away a woman's spot to hold things, the world kept them, needing more help. After all, if you cannot hold money, how far can you actually go? And so, here you are. You have been asked to tea on the other side of town. You need a nosecloth, a comb, maybe a key, but you have no place to put it. You must ask your brother, or even worse, your helper. You could put something in your sleeve, for sure, but that only helps until you move your arm and your house key falls into the fire during the sweet treat. It is not just a bother. Hidden inside pockets for watches and little snuff boxes, they are almost like little moving file drawers. And what do you receive? A fancy bag tied with a pretty string. Of course, the idea was that you would not need to hold anything. What could a good lady ever need when not at home? Your job was to be pretty, to be homey, and to be nice, not to carry around keys or little jars of sweet jam. And if you did try to go out with your own money or things, that was not trusted. Women, on their own, were trouble, problem makers, maybe from France. But women, as they usually do, became smart. Some put money inside their gloves. Others sewed secret pockets in their underskirts, or hid little things under their hat tops. One really fighting back trick was sewing little spots inside tight clothes, because if you are already being squeezed to near, you might as well carry your secret shopping money next to your inner parts. And let us not miss the big keychain trick, tying your keys on a long string around your middle, then putting the bunch of keys deep down under your skirts. It did make a lot of jingle sounds, yes, but also gave off a strong home boss who could lock the food room and take over a country feeling. Still, these were just quick fixes. The bigger picture was clear. You were not trusted with your own things. You had no way to get to things, no freedom to do things without getting ready, no doing things on the spot. Want to go to a place? You better plan your extra things like you are going up to the moon. One bad move and you are stuck without money for the bus or a nosecloth for your sneezes. God help you if you need both in the same hour. And here is the really big thing. This pocket issue was not just about purses. It was about being there. When you cannot hold things, you move in a new way. You count on other people. You stay near chairs that have drawers. You plan where you go based on what you can get to. And you are always reminded, quietly, with style, that the world is not made for you to work on your own in it. There is even a scary link between not having pockets and the watching of women's bodies. The less you could hold, the more held in you were. Everything you needed had to be little, soft, quiet, nothing that makes noise, nothing with hard sides. A woman with full pockets was a woman with power, a woman who might go someplace, buy something, or heaven forbid, write something down. It is good to know that this silly thing was fought against as the years went on. Women who wanted rights made pockets for women, a part of their bigger list of wants. Clothes that worked became a quiet new start. Groups for good sense in clothes came about, asking for clothes that did not bend your back or need a helper to carry your red lip stuff. They did not succeed fast. Even in our time, women tell jokes, only partly jokes, about dresses that have no pockets. It has pockets has become a new time war yell, a funny picture. A little wind yelled from store changing rooms. So tonight, as you look for your comb and then drop your little bag into a fish pond because the string broke, take a second to see the pure silliness of it all. You are in a world where a whole group of people had their ability to carry things taken away by a world that loved power, dressed up as style, and maybe, just maybe, you put a little rock in the bottom of your dress, not to use, just to feel it there. Your own little act of fighting back, making a quiet sound as you walk by the tea table. You are standing near the door, about to go outside, but a thing feels wrong. You cannot quite figure out what it is until you see your gloves. You did not put on your gloves. A big scare. Because in the old-timey world, going someplace with no gloves on your hands is not just strange. It is almost like saying you want a social fight. Gloves were not a style choice. They were like a shield. Manners said you needed them. The world made you wear them. And bad things hid in the fingers of the person with no gloves. Tonight, you are learning the big rule of the glove. Here is the main point. If you are going out of the house, you are putting on gloves. Seeing someone, gloves. Going shopping, gloves. Going to a sad service, a wedding, a tea party, or a serious reading of poems, gloves. And do not even think of a holy place without them. That would be like going there in your socks and a towel for the bath. You would not just be not holy. You would be not like a person from a town, and not just any kind of gloves. The cloth was important, the length, the color, if they were made of soft kid skin, pretty lace, or simple cotton. There was a glove ranking, and you were meant to know your place. Daytime meant light cotton or soft suede. Nights meant long opera gloves, long, tight, most times white, and not comfy enough to make your fingers think about leaving you. Take them off too soon, a big mistake. Keep them on too long, not nice. There were rules, many, many of them. Whole little books were made on how to act with gloves. You take off your right glove to shake a hand. You never eat with your gloves on, but you do not take them off as soon as you come into a room. You wait for the right time. From others, usually when your host has taken hers off first. It is like a glove-based game of Simon Says. Smart people still talk about if glove rules were for being clean, being shy, or just a smart way to keep women busy and not sure. Some say gloves kept soft hands safe from dirt and sickness. Others say it was about how rich you were. If your hands were clean and not rough, it meant you did not have to work, which meant you were a better person. But there is one more reason: to touch. Skin without gloves was close, very bad. Even a man touching a woman's hand with no gloves could start a lot of talk, and 6 spoiled good names, so gloves were a wall. Real social padding. A handshake with gloves was right. One without, almost like a plan to marry. Which makes things very strange when you want a person to touch your hand. Think about being in love, or at least liking someone enough to risk being red-faced and having to show your feelings, one glove at a time. A woman taking off her left glove in a slow way, a secret sign. A man touching her bare fingers with his a whole body feeling, and probably a family meeting. And yet gloves were not just walls. They were playthings in the show of flirting. A lady might by mistake drop one, knowing very well a gentleman would jump to get it. That little piece of cloth would become a special thing. Some men even kept the glove of the one they loved as a memory, put in a coat pocket or a secret book. Smart people have found old gloves next to love notes, still smelling a little like lavender or wanting something badly. But here is the hard part. Gloves were not cheap. The best ones were from France, sewn by hand, soft like butter, and cost a whole lot poorer. Women had to use old ones or fake ones. Sometimes they would make old gloves white again, or used old ones to make little hand covers for kids. And if a glove tore when you were out, you better hope it was your not main hand. The world might forgive a worn dress bottom, but fingers showing social death. You even had to hold gloves in a certain way, never pushed into a bag, always folded up nicely when you took them off. And heaven helped you if you played with them when talking to someone that showed you were worried, not paying attention, or even worse, telling a lie. There is a whole part in one manner book about how to put your gloves gently on your lap without people seeing. It is very, very clear. Step 1, do not make a thump sound. Step 2, never let them drop into your cup of tea. Step 3, why are you still holding them? And if you believe men had it less hard, well, yes, they did. Of course they did. But even they were meant to follow the glove rules. A gentleman never had gloves on inside unless the room was very cold. He also never touched a lady's glove unless she said so, which made giving back gloves a soft job that was part being nice and part secret flirting. It is simple to make fun of this now, all this fuss about fingers. But know that gloves were not just cloth. They were a part of a costume, a suit of being a good person. Without them, a woman felt not covered, not finished, not dressed right. It was like not having your shoes, or even worse, your good name, which gets us to the really strange part. Gloves and being good. Yes. Gloves were tied to being a good person. She is no better than a lady who walks with her hands not covered. Someone might say in a low voice, that line was a real thing. Gloves were like signs for being pure, for holding back, and for good. Raising Dot to take them off in front of people was like taking off your goodness. It is no surprise gloves became a loved thing in books, usually right before the chapter about the bad thing. So, here you are, coming into your aunt's front room, 5 minutes behind, hoping that no one sees your hands without gloves. You hold your hands near to your skirts. Maybe you act like you are cold. Maybe you say you left them at the holy place. But deep down inside, you know what the people in the room are thinking. What other things has she forgotten? Her shyness, her good ways, her chance to marry. It is silly. And still you can feel it. That little bit of worry, that flutter of feeling bad. All from 10 fingers and no gloves. So the next time you put your hand into a warm glove on a cold day, please think about your old-timey friend. She was not just making her hands warm, she was keeping her good name safe, one little stitch at a time. You stand on the outside of the house of a Mrs. Hartford Smith. The air is full of the smell of much lavender and worry about friends. You are not at this place for a good time. You are at this place for a visit, not a call on the phone. Those are not a thing yet, but a special act, more hard than a game of chess, and about as fun as paying your taxes in a tight dress. Hello to the dizzying rules of old-timey visiting cards. These were not only pieces of paper. They were your whole friend resume, good name, and personal self put onto a little square of thick paper. Too thick, and you are showing off. Too thin, and you for sure do not fit in. It had to be a nice cream color, with nice writing, no other colors, no extra things, and for sure, no smell. This was not a note of love. This was like talking to other countries, and you are not just at this place to say hi. You are doing a very fancy social dance where one bad step, a knock too early, a badly bent card can spoil your good name for a whole year. Smart people still talk about if the visiting card ways came from real niceness or from a strong need to not have to really speak to people, no matter what. It became a big thing. So, you put your hand in your little card holder, pretty tortoiseshell if you are. Well, dash off, fake, shiny shell. If you are, you take out the card with your gloved hands, right? Right glove still on, left glove off, because rules. And give it to the helper. Now, here is the part that gets fun. You do not get to come in. Oh no, if they do not expect you, you leave your card at the house door. Truly, this is what is known as leaving one's card, and it is old-timey talk for just seeing to be sure I am still on your list of okay friends. Sometimes you leave a single card for the lady of the home and one for her husband. If you are very brave or painfully right, you bend the top left part to show you are visiting in person and not just coming by hoping for a sponge cake. A bent bottom part meant you were sad for someone. An edge bent under meant you were happy for someone. There were so many little signs on these cards. They might as well have had words at the bottom. If your card is taken and you are asked to come in, good for you. You now must get through the real visit. This means going into a drawing room like you are made of lace and not being sure, sitting on the side of a small couch, never leaning back. Remember how you sit and getting ready for 15 minutes of very strong, acted out niceness. No more, no less. Staying for too long is not nice. Leaving too soon is even worse. You must talk in a nice way about the day's weather, the Queen's new headache, or that very, very bad wallpaper Mrs. Trimble picked, while acting like you are not here just because you have to be. You may not talk about leaders. You may not talk about God. You may for sure not talk about how not fun this is. Laughing is okay, but only a little, only with a nosecloth ready, with prettiness, the big kind of laughing, the one that might show you are happy or feel good. That is for bars and for men. But let's go back for a second, because getting to this visit took a whole pre-visit dance. You cannot just visit any person. You must be well introduced by a third person. If not, it is bold and worse, not fancy. And if a person visits you, manners say you must do it back within 1 week, but not too fast. That looks needy. And if a person visits and you do not visit back, that is a cold shoulder, a statement. The friendship is done and you will now be talked about in low voices and with side looks at the dress shop. It is very tiring. It is all the time. It is like paperwork, but with shoes. Even how these cards were kept was a plan. Most fancy homes had a silver plate in the front hall where people would put their cards. And because how things look was everything, some families, especially when not many friends came by, would fluff up the plate with old cards to look like they were more wanted than they really were. Yes, that is correct. People pretended to be popular with pretty trash. There were also set times for visiting, usually from 3 to 5 o'clock. Not said, but very strong. You come before 3. You were trying too much. After 5, you were a free spirit with no idea of what is right. Even the day's weather had a part. A bright day might mean a longer visit. Rain meant you should make it short and act like your coach is parked in a bad spot, and feel bad for anyone who did not bring their card holder. You could not just say who you were. You had to leave a thing. There is a known case of a woman who had to rip a piece from her shawl and leave it with her name letters quickly written on the cloth, very big. For sure, it worked. She was not ever asked to come back. Visiting cards were also a fight place for women trying to move up in the world. A card that was a little bigger with bold letters could show you wanted more. Putting a quiet set of letters in style, putting Mrs. or Miss, very key. Married women could visit anyone. Single women needed a helper, and even then, only if they were told about each other before. Women who left their husbands, not allowed, unless they had money. Then they were strange and open to being forgiven out of interest. And let us not miss the gentlemen. Men were meant to visit other men, and sometimes the lady of the home, but only as part of a planned-out thing with family groups, job chances, or quiet love spying. If a gentleman left his card, it better have a reason, and if he bent the side, people would talk. Think of the worry. Every friend's step was planned out before every visit was a tricky place of bent corners, timed leaving, and how people judged your chair cloth. No one could be truthful. No one could be free. And still, everyone joined in like some big silly play where everyone forgot what to say, and no one was brave enough to say it. Still, some women found a strange kind of strength in it all. They became the bosses of the friend circle, seeing the bent corners like tea leaves, deciding who was in and who was out with a move of a fan and the placing of a card. Your good name might rest on how thick your card paper was. But if you did the game right, you could go up the friend ladder, one very nicely written visit at a time. So, as you go back into your coach, putting your gloves on, right, and faking a thankful smile, know this. In the old-timey world, friendships were not made with talks. They were made with paper, shine, and very well-bent corners. And you would better hope yours said just what you wanted it to. You have made it through the visiting card challenge. Good job, but do not get comfy yet. You are now at a real dinner party. The lights are flickering. The helper has gone into the wallpaper like a well-taught ghost, and everyone is floating too. They're given chairs like human game pieces. That is correct. Tonight, the fighting place is the dining room, and your tool is where you sit, because, in old-timey manners, where you sat was just as key as who you were. Hello to the world of seating order, where your friend worth could be known in inches from the host's elbow. First of all, you do not pick your chair. That would be crazy. No, the host or hostess does. Usually the hostess. She plans the seating before with the seriousness of a war plan. Visiting cards or written nameplates are sometimes put quietly on the table. If your name is not where you thought it would be, say 2 chairs more down than the last time, you are in trouble. Quiet, not said trouble. The top of the table is a holy place. The host and hostess sit on far ends, like the king and queen of a candlelit land. To their right and left are the main guests, high-up visitors, possible loves, small nobles, or people with very good gossip to share, if you are lucky enough to get a spot near them. Good for you, you are fun this week. If you are sitting near the middle, you are mid-level good, can be counted on, not fun, but not a risk for trouble either. And if you are near the bottom of the table, well, you probably sneezed too loud at the last garden party, or were heard calling Lady Thistlethwaite's hairpiece too big. This is not just a meal, it is a friend checkup. Your chair tells all how the hostess sees you. Closer means liked. Farther means can be forgotten. And if you are seated next to a not nice person, that is not a mistake. It is a note. Maybe you need to be made more humble. Maybe you are being punished. Or maybe the hostess just likes a little bit of trouble with her soup part. Now, if you are not married, your seating has even more parts. Young ladies are often put in smart spots, near single, gentlemen, but not too near. That would be too clear. And heaven help you if the man is left-handed. That could lead to strange elbow bumps and fully spoil the look of easy grace. And talking about grace, you are meant to sit, float, and smile all at the same time when your chair is moved out, always. By a helper or the gentleman next to you, you must put yourself down in one smooth move. No thumps, no moving around. Your back does not touch the chair. That is for after the sweet treat. Maybe your hands rest softly in your lap unless you are eating. Your ankles must stay next to each other, hidden under your dress, like a secret you would never be brave enough to share. But here is a strange little thing you might not guess. Women never sat down before the hostess did, ever. Doing so was a break in the rules, as if you were saying, I am in charge of the room now, which unless your last name is Windsor, you for sure are not. You wait for her to sit. You follow what she does. She sneezes. You pretty much bless her in your mind. And when it is time to talk, you are only meant to talk to the person on your left for the first part of the meal, then the one on your right for the second. It goes back and forth like a quiet, set dance made to keep you from showing you like one person more, or worse, making a team. This rule was very stressful if you were put next to someone very not fun, like Major Fortescue, who only talks about birds, or Miss Barrett, who says potatoes are a Protestant food. Smart people say that these seating acts were not just about power. They were about keeping things steady. With so many rules to follow, no one could make trouble without it being very, very clear. A young man trying to flirt too much with a new young lady. Not possible. He is stuck 3 chairs away, made to talk with her cousin, a newly rich factory owner, hoping to be better than old rich people. Not going to happen. He is put just far enough from the hostess to remind him that coal money is not real money. Now, there were some times it was different. Sometimes hosts planned mixed seating, men and women back and forth around the table. Other times, especially in less fancy meals, women sat with each other at one side and men at the other. But no matter the way, the order still ruled. You knew who was important by how near they were to the candles, the wine, and the knives for cutting. There is even a strange old belief from that time. Being put with your back to the door meant you were open to bad luck or gossip or worse, surprise marriage plans. Some women would nicely ask to be moved, if their chair looked at an open door. Better to make your hostess mad than to leave the night with a new fiancé and a mother-in-law who collects bone cups and bad feelings. Let us not forget that if you were the host of this event, your job was even harder. You had to balance how people act, who might flirt, and family fights like a fancy-time party planner. Putting the wrong two people next to each other could start a fight, a bad story, or, worst of all, a strange, quiet time. And yes, there are known cases of guests saying they would not come because they did not like their given chair. In one very known story, a duchess left a dinner party when she found she was put next to a newly named baronet, i.e. with blood. She was heard to say, not ink. That is both mean and very much how things were for that time. So here you are, finally in your chair, finally not moving, and very aware that you are with people who are also very aware of you. You nod at the lady on the other side. You smile, not too big. At the gentleman next to you, you act like you do not see the low comment about your gloves. You fold your napkin just so, and you wait, because in this room, being quiet is a plan. Where you sit is your rank, and the dinner has not even begun yet. The dinner is done. The lights are getting low, and your tight dress is having a big fight. You have smiled, nodded, and not even once grabbed the wrong fork. Good for you, but just when you believe you have passed through the night without a friend injury, your hostess stands up and says, "Shall we go for a walk around the drawing room?" Oh no, it is going on. You are going to have to walk in front of people with others looking, and even worse. There are stairs. Old-timey stair rules were less about getting up and down and more about not having a good doorbad fall. Because some way, even going up a set of stairs could look bad if you were not paying attention. So here you are, heel pushed softly into the carpet strip, one hand resting with a soft touch on the railing, but not holding on. It is for staying steady, not holding on for your life as you start your pretty climb. Behind you, a gentleman. And this is the part that gets soft, because, in right old-timey life, a man was never meant to go up the stairs right after a lady. That would mean he would be at eye height with her ankles, or worse, her calves. And in this very, very worried friend world, that was like looking right at her inner thoughts, so bad. Not right, almost like the start of flirting. Smart people still talk about if this worry about ankles was made bigger, or very, very real. Some say it came from older times, when showing ankles was for sure seen as for love. Others think it was a part of a bigger world, worry with keeping women's bodies as hidden as they could be, so no one would have a quick bad thought and the world would fall apart. Whatever the reason, the end was that stairways became very, very clear. If a man and woman went upstairs with each other, the man either had to stay back in a strange way, or, if he was brave, go up first so he could not look at anything he was not meant to, of course. This made for a lot of strange moving at the bottoms of stairs, where everyone nicely said the other should go first until someone's friend, confidence, fell apart. It was like a fight of being nice. After you. No, I must say, after you. I could not do that, but I might see your shoes, just so. And talking of shoes, those were one more problem. Women's dress bottoms were long, yes, but stairs made them tricky. One bad step and the whole skirt could go up just enough to show a quick look of a stocking. You could be the picture of being proper all night, and then one misstep on the stairs, and boom, talk for weeks. Did you see Miss Elphinston's left leg, so bold? You held your skirts just up enough to not fall, but not so up that anything bad peeked out. There is even a whole chapter in some manner books just for how to act on stairs. Yes, how to act, with pictures of how to place your hands, ways to lift your skirt, and the best looks for your face. Let us not forget what you had on either. Tight clothes made your middle smaller and hurt your ability to breathe. Underskirts swirled like cloth water pools. Bottom puffs gave you the lower body moving space of a cold box. And still, you were meant to go upstairs, like you did not weigh anything. Like gravity itself liked your breathing and chose to go easy on you a bit. Then there were stairs for everyone. Outside stairs, the ones in parks or at the fronts of holy places. Those were extra risky. Not only could you trip and fall, but you would do it in front of people meant to be men who were not family and so had no reason to know if you could stand up straight in these times. Women often had a friend, maybe another woman, or at least a very old man in the family to make a safe space. Now, going downstairs was a new kind of risk. Going down meant your face could be seen, but you had to look at the stairs, not the people looking in the eye while stepping down. That could be seen as being bold, a statement. I know I am coming to you, and I mean it. Not good. Worse, if a man was at the bottom of the stairs, he had to look away or stare very hard at a picture nearby. Looking up was for sure not allowed. Too straight, too bold, too French, and you never gave your hand unless you tripped, in which case the right thing for a gentleman was to catch you and right away say he was sorry, as if he had done a bad thing. It is all about how things look and being in charge, old-timey. Women were taught that every move was important. Walking was a show. Stairs were a stage, and any sign of not being steady, body or friend, could leave a mark. There is even a strange idea that stair rules were part of how women were taught to make themselves smaller, more quiet, less seen. You learn to float not, to walk, to go down with no sound, to not hit people, to not talk, and to not have trouble with the same care. And if you were seen, you better hope it was for your grace, not for your ankles. Still, there were times it was different. Brave women, the fighting back kind, who did not wait for a helper at every stair place, who walked up stone stairs with not one look back. Some, even, get ready, let men come after them. These were often American women, very bad in their own way, who would say what they thought and walk like they meant it. British life put up with them, but only because they were thought to go back home in the end. So, back to you. Your foot lands on the last stair. You have done it. Your skirt did not move. Your gloves did not get stuck. The gentleman behind you looked at the railing like his life was on the line. And now you have stepped with grace into the drawing room one more time. One more manner block past. But do not get too sure of yourself. The piano has just been uncovered. Someone is about to say, "Let's all sing," and the rule for saying no nicely without making anyone mad. That is a whole other set of stairs to go up. You made it through the stairs. But now you are sitting one more time on the side of a too small sofa in a too stiff drawing room, sipping tea that has the taste of boiled waiting. Talk goes around you. A thing about a bishop's plants. A thing about a niece's first party, and you are nicely acting like you care. But inside your sleeve, your hand is moving. Why? Because put there is your secret tool, your secret code, friend, your soft, wet helper, the handkerchief. Tonight, it is not just to wipe a tear or dry your face. No, your handkerchief is about to say a lot, and you do not even have to say a thing in old-timey life. A handkerchief was not just a piece of cloth, it was a talking tool, folded, dropped, moved, or spun. It sent notes more bad than the normal dinner party ever was brave enough to say. The language of fans might have been big, but handkerchiefs, they were quiet, dangerous. Let's begin with the simple things. Everyone had one. Some people had many. They were made of linen, cotton, even lace-edged silk if you were fancy, or at least acting like it. Name letters were normal. Scented ones were a small flirt, but like all things in your tightly dressed life, there were rules. A lady never blew her nose with sound. That was seen as awful. A soft wipe at the nose was allowed, but only if it was done with no sound and with grace, like you were saying sorry to the air for being there. Sneezing, oh, that was a big deal. If it took you by surprise, you were to cover it with your handkerchief, as if stopping a bad spirit. One sniffle too loud, and you would be known for all time as that girl with the nose problem. But more than the sniffles, handkerchiefs were secret code tools, folded nicely and held in the left hand. You are saying, I am waiting for you to come to me. Spun without thinking, I am not having fun. Dropped by mistake in front of a gentleman. That is not a mistake. That is a trap. And if he gets it and gives it back with a look that means something, well, now it is a love story. Smart people still talk about how much this handkerchief language was really used. Some say it was just a thing in books, something from love stories, and not real tear rooms. Others think women really did learn these signs as a way around their roles, with no voice. After all, when the world says you cannot talk first, you find other ways to get your note across, even if it means faking sneezes. There is a lovely story, maybe not real, of a lady at a garden party who dropped her handkerchief 3 times in front of 3 different men before one of them finally got it. Either she was very bad at aiming or very, very smart. Either way, she got a marriage plan that fall. So good for her for not giving up. And the notes did not end with flirting. A wrinkled handkerchief might show a broken heart. A well-sewn one, given as a present, could mean friendship, a team, or deeper feelings that were never said out loud. Some women sewed name letters in the corner in a secret code, using flowers or little knots as signs, like Morse code for people who held in their feelings. Of course, there were rules about getting a handkerchief, too. If someone gave it back to you folded, that was being nice. If they gave it back open, that was showing interest. If they held on to it, well, you either just got engaged or began a fight, maybe both. Let's also talk about being clean, or not being clean. Handkerchiefs were not just pretty flirts. They were meant to take care of all things, from tears to colds to sweat from the heat. But cleaning them, that was its own hard job. Top-class women might have a lady's helper to do. Such things middle-class women, they washed them softly with lavender water and put them up to dry in the shade of a big leaf. Bush dot. At least that is what the books said. And heaven help you if you gave someone your handkerchief. That was a close thing, more close than a handshake. Giving it to a man meant a thing. taking one from a man that was almost like a promise. You did not just get a man's cloth square. You were tied to it, but sometimes it was used as a tool. Think of the mean little sniff, the well-timed wipe of a dry eye during a big reading. One woman was said to have caused a whole house fight by mistake, leaving her lace-edged handkerchief on a rival's couch, sewn with a name letter that was not hers. The bad story went on for months. It was not all big things, though handkerchiefs also had feeling weight. They were put in memory boxes, pressed in the pages of love notes. They were given down from mother to daughter as signs of being a girl and holding back. Some were used to wipe the faces of dying soldiers, others to hold wedding rings during fast weddings. They soaked up more than tears. They soaked up history. Let's not forget the sad handkerchief, black-edged, stiff, and full of meaning. These were used at funerals and sad times, which could last for real years depending on how big you felt about your great-uncle leaving. Women were meant to cry with goodness, and the right handkerchief was part of that set of tools. Too soft, you had no strength. Too rough, you had no class. Just right, you were the picture of sad grace. And then there were showy uses in a time of big feeling. Real or not, you might hold the handkerchief to your chest or wipe at the side of your eye while leaving the room. In a big way, these were moves everyone knew. You did not have to say, "I am very, very sad about Lord Featherstone's engagement." You just twisted your methered linen with shaking fingers and floated out of the front room. Some women made a whole self around their handkerchief ways. "Oh, Miss Winthorpe is always twisting hers. She must be very, very feeling." Did you see Lady Rowena's handkerchief? Scalloped sides from Paris. She dropped hers 3 times at the last music show. So bold. So, tonight, as you put your handkerchief back into your sleeve, well folded, smelling of rosewater, and sewn with just the right amount of quietness, you know its strength. It is a shield, a way to show feelings, sometimes even a fight back. And tomorrow, when you see him one more time, you just might drop it on purpose. It is a new day. A cool wind moves the lace curtains. The sun comes softly through the colored glass window, and somewhere down the stairs, someone is getting the piano ready. You, in the meantime, are in your room in a state of full panic. Why? Because your hair is not right, old-timey. Hair rules were not just about curls and combs. It was a full-time good or bad guide sitting on your head. And today you are going to fight with pins, pads, and a good bit of friend worry. Because your hair tells all before your mouth can get a chance to say a thing at all. Let's begin with the simple things. Hair was holy. Truly, it was tied to being good, being a girl, and how you felt. Wild hair, wild woman, perfectly coiled curls, shy, well raised, and just the right bit of held, dash in, no worry. You were meant to have your hair up all the time, unless you are under 13 and sad or about to be married, and even then, it is a very short time to do so. Letting your hair be loose as a grown woman was for the very sick, the newly sad, or the artsy and crazy. If you even stepped into a garden party with your hair flowing free, you might as well come with no shoes, singing old songs to the hydrangeas. And do not think you can just tie it up and be finished. No, your hair must be done with thought, with taste, with a lot of work. Here come the pins. So many pins. You will have to spend at least half of an hour each morning pulling and twisting your hair into a soft but strong style that seems to take no work, but really needs a small building degree. Buns, braids, coils, and now and then a Grecian knot are all in style, but not too high, then you are a show-off. Not too low, then you are slouchy. Somewhere near the back top of the head seems okay, but even then, if it leans too much to one side, someone will say in a low voice, "She is for sure very upset." And do not forget height. Old-timey people loved a little lift, especially at the top. That is where pads and rats come in. No, not the little squeaky kind. Hair rats were little net tubes made of hair that was collected. Sometimes your own, sometimes other people's, which is a detail we are all just going to quickly not think about. You would put one under your real hair to make it bigger. The end. A fuller, queen-like look that said, "I have rank, I have a helper, and I have not cried in a barn since Easter." Of course, what they were made of was important. Hairbrushes with real animal hairs, tortoise-shell combs, ivory pins if you were rich, bone boom if you were middle class, smartly painted, wood if you were pretending. Hair oil was a must, rose-melling, hopefully brought from far away. A greasy look was in. Dry hair meant not caring, or worse, having no money now. Let's talk about washing hair, or more right, not washing it much. Smart people still talk about how many times old-timey women washed their hair. Some books say every 8 to 10 days. Others say even less. Washing hair each week was not normal because water was a big job. Making it hot, carrying it, not to mention drying your hair without a fast air wrap. So instead, they brushed a lot. 100 brushes a night. It was not just for looks. It was thought to wake up the scalp, move the oils, and stop you from being a bad person. And if your hair was not doing what you wanted, well, that is what fake hair was for. Women wore extra hair, often made from human hair. You could get them from drugstores or big stores. Some were put into your ups, others were clipped in with art. The main thing was to be quiet. If someone could see you had a fake tail, you would be a dinner party joke. Now, the really crazy part. Hair as a memory. Yes, old-timey people loved to give pieces of hair. Lovers gave each other curls tied with a string. Mothers cut baby curls to put in little lockets, sad jewelry, bracelets, brooches. Even full flower rings were made from the braided hair of the person who was gone. Whole shops were good at turning your dead aunt's hair into pretty things for the shelf. It is both touching and scary, and very much in style for a world that loved both feelings and quiet horror. And talking of being sad, hair rules got even more hard if you were grieving for a wife in full sadness. Fancy hairstyles were not okay. You wore your hair low and plain, maybe with a cover, no pretty strings, no fancy combs. You were to seem sad, but still clean. Messy was okay only for the ones with a very broken heart or pretend. Heroes in books that came out in parts. You also had to change your hair based on your age. And if you were married, unmarried girls could have softer styles, more curls, and sometimes a pretty string. But married women were meant to move on to more serious styles. The meaning being, now that you are married, your hair should show you are not looking anymore, even if your husband is 3 towns away, playing pool with Lord Grimthorpe, There is even the strange little fact about hair and pictures. If you were getting your picture painted or taken, you did not just come as you were. Picture hair was on another level. You might spend a long time getting every curl set, every hair stuck into place, because once that picture was there, it showed your face and hair for a long, long time. Better to look a little bit backed up, but with good hair, than relaxed and forgotten by history. Some ladies had hairdressers. The richest had help with their hair every day. Others taught their helpers in the fine art of fancy braiding. For most, though, it was a job done alone, in quiet, before a mirror, with a candle, with lotions, brushes, and the slow fear that one loose curl might show a not steady self. But here is the new part. Some women loved it. Hair was one of the few parts of how they looked they could be in charge of. It was private and for everyone. Yours, but also the world's. And inside the tight lines of what was okay in style, some found new ideas. They made special twists, special strings, quiet ways to show they were fighting back, or at least different. And of course, there were the ones who were different. Women who had their hair very short, or very bad, lie loose. One known social lady was said to have cut her hair to her chin and gone to the opera with no hat. The papers fainted. But the next year, the soft front bob became a quiet new style among younger ladies, usually only worn in private rooms or while on trips in places where no one could tell your mother. So now, as you fix the last pin, smooth the last loose hair with pomade and look one last time in the mirror, you breathe in deep. Your hair is just right, quietly good, not too fun, not too plain, just enough to get nice nods from the other ladies and the smallest look from the gentleman near the fire. Because, in the end, your hair does not just stay there. It talks in curls and buns, in shine and height, in every not said rule twisted into a hair. And tonight it says, I know just what I am doing. Even if you for sure, do not, you have handled your hair, your gloves, your visiting cards. You have gone up the stairs with ankle-safe grace and made it through the dinner seating plan with no harm. You are almost like a queen until you laugh, just a small laugh. A tiny, well-deserved bit of fun at Lord Atherton's silly thought that cucumbers are born spicy. And all of a sudden, the room changes. Heads move, eyebrows twitch. A quietness heavier than your bottom puff comes in. Because tonight, dear friend, you have done the bad thing of laughing in the wrong way. Old-timey women, you see, were meant to show they were having fun, the way one might see a very nice doily with quiet, calm liking. Anything louder than a little titter, risky, loud laughing, was not like a lady, not good, and worst of all, low class. Let's paint the picture. You are in the drawing room. Someone has just made a word joke about Lord Wellington's shoes, and your whole self wants to laugh. Not because it is funny, old-timey jokes almost never are, but because it is allowed. This is your chance. A small crack in the wall of being formal, but how you laugh is important. A lady should cover her mouth, not hide her face like an old-timey ninja, but softly, as if getting a butterfly of fun before it flies away. The sound must be low. The eyes can shine, but not roll. The shoulders may move a little, but any sign of a real body being in it, a belly laugh, unthinkable. Smart people talk about if this holding back of girl joy was more about gender power or just plain being snobby. Some Think women's laughing was scary because it showed they had power, boldness, even, heaven forbid, feeling good about themselves. Others say it was part of a bigger world push to keep women soft, quiet, and easy to take. Either way, the note was clear. Laughing, like ankles, must be very much in charge. And so old-timey manner books gave real rules on how to laugh. You were to be merry, not loud, amused, not happy, no open mouths, no big grins, a smile that stays nice, a giggle that repeats, very bad. One very keen manner guide said to practice drawing room laughing in front of a mirror to be sure it showed the right amount of held in fun without starting the lower feelings, which means do not laugh like a real person, laugh like a very nice ghost. And it was not just laughing itself, it was who you laughed at, making fun of a person above you. Risky. Laughing with a person of higher rank. Chancy, making fun of anyone in the room. Totally not allowed. Most safe, laughing at your own self, as long as it was soft and did not show real self-knowledge, which was also not liked. Now, of course, some women fought back, quietly, with a plan. A well-timed snort behind a fan. A low said joke hidden as a cough. One very known sharp-tongued duchess was known to lift her glass and say, "How very funny," in a voice that could make tea go bad. And some way that was okay because she never once smiled. But the real risk was in laughing that sounded like happiness. You laugh loud and people think you are bold. Bold becomes pushy. Pushy becomes risky. And all of a sudden, your name is being said in the same way as actresses, American rich girls, and worst of all, women who want rights. There is a strange side note here. Old-timey men were told to laugh, roaring with laughter. Over wine and roast meat was very much like a man. Jokes in the smoking room. Go crazy, rude little poems. As long as no women were there, you could say dirty things until your eyeglass fogged up. But women were to get jokes, not make them, to laugh softly or not at all. This difference was seen. Some women made it an art. They learned the mirror laugh, showing the fun of their friends without showing what they really thought. Think of it as feeling ventriloquism. If your neighbor laughed, you smiled. If your host guffawed, you gave a pretty ha-ha. You never laughed first. You never laughed louder. You laughed for others, not for your feelings. Let's not forget the dangers of the wrong kind of laughing. Nervous laughing during a sad talk, a mess, a giggle during a prayer, bad for your soul, and laughing during a big poetry reading, especially if it has weeping trees, dead lovers, or anyone named Beatrice, could get you kicked out of nice life and your book group. And if, heaven forbid, you really did snort, oh my, there is a story, maybe not real, of a viscountess who let out a full-body snort during a badly said toast. She was taken out with the story of a quick headache and never asked back to that special house again. Her social death notice was written that night over cold meat and whispering fans. But in the private times of women's groups, the laughing rules changed. Tea rooms, sewing, groups, the sometimes ladies' afternoon, away from men and friend pressure. These were safe spots. Here, laughter could come out more free, less practiced, still held back, yes, but real. The kind that makes eyes crinkle and shakes tight clothes. Short breaks where women could be human for 15 minutes between getting more tea, and even those times had a plan. Laughing too much showed you were lazy, too little cold. The aim was to be balanced, to be the kind of woman whose laughing sounded like wind chimes on a summer day. Not like someone who once read a funny book and did not get over it for days. Some women wrote about the hard nature of laugh rules in their secret books. One young woman told of practicing smiling sounds in the mirror to make her real laugh softer. Another said she once faked a cough to hide a snicker at a bishop's fake hair. And yet, even with these private frustrations, most did it. It was how you stayed alive. Because, in the old-timey world, a woman's laugh was never just a laugh. It was a sign, a test, a trap. So now, as you sit on that too small sofa, eyes shining, but lips just a little open, you let out a laugh. Soft, polished, nice. It floats out into the front room, lands gently on the flower rug, and is gone. You have passed. But just one time, when no one is looking, you let yourself have a real one. Sharp, loud, happy, and totally not allowed. The parlor has gotten quiet. The fire is down to a nice flicker, and the guests are starting their fancy goodbyes. Each one a planned-out show of hats, gloves, and little bows. But you are staying for the night, a guest. In another person's home, a soft place, needing the best grace, quiet feet, and most scary of all, a well-packed overnight bag. Because in the old-timey time, being a house guest was not just about coming with flowers and a toothbrush. No, you were meant to do a hospitality dance, a clear, tiring, very, very confusing set of acts known as guest rules. Let's begin with your coming. You never just come by. You send a note before asking if you can visit, and the hostess, if she has a spot, answers with a formal ask, saying dates, times, and in some cases, what to wear. Yes, for real. A weekend house party was not just easy mixing. It was a plan that looked like a trip. Once you are in, you are not really a human anymore. You are a guest, which means you must be nice, not asking for things, and always thankful. Even if the bed has lumps, and the wash bowl smells a little bit of mothballs, your bags are brought up by a helper. You are taken to your room, a guest room decorated to show that you are wanted, but not too wanted, so you do not stay too long. There is a pitcher of water, a comb you probably will not use, and a bell pull string hanging by the fire, which you are very, very scared to pull. What if you call someone by mistake? What if it rings in the drawing room, so you do not pull it? You unpack with no sound, putting your underclothes under a shawl so as not to shock the wallpaper. Then comes the guest book. Ah, yes, many old-timey homes had one. A big, leather-covered book where you were meant to write your name, date of coming, and maybe a nice thought, like, so happy to be with such dear friends. Anything less than sweet, sweet praise showed you were not thankful. But be too much of a poet, and you might sound like you are joking. It is a very thin, hard line. Once you have written your must-do praise, you are free to have the hospitality, which of course means following more rules. You get up when the house gets up, not sooner. You will wake the helpers, and not later. You will be judged. Breakfast is usually not formal, but by old-timey ways. That still means certain foods, certain ways of serving, and just zero talk of anything that starts fights before the third piece of toast. Now, here is a strange one. You do not praise the food too much. Doing so shows you are surprised. What tasty roast bird sounds like, I did not think this. Dump would serve food you can eat, so you keep it small. So nice, you might say low, a very pleasing feel. Food is not about being happy. It is about being nice with a side of boiled greens. The rest of the day has a plan. Morning walks, reading in the drawing room, maybe croquet or charades if the host is feeling fun, and you are meant to join in. Saying no to a thing without a very good reason, and no, I am shy and like to be alone, is not a good reason, is seen as not nice. And what about being private? Funny. You do not have any. Your room may not have a lock. Your washstand may have a wall with someone else's, and old-timey houses, for all their bigness, were often full of drafts and creaks. Everyone hears all things. So you walk softly, cough quietly, and do not shut doors hard under any case, unless you want yourself judged over cakes tomorrow morning. Now, let's talk about bathroom rules. Or more, right? Not having them. New plumbing was not in many places. Many guest rooms had chamber pots, put quietly under the bed, or in a closet stuck to the wall. Using it was a job of being quiet and brave. Emptying it, a helper's job, which is just why you feel bad every time you know it is there. Some women went whole weekends without using it at all, holding all things in until they went back home like bladder-based saints. Bathing was one more hard thing. A full bath might be made ready once when you are there, and only if asked for with a lot of notice. You would be given hot water, poured with love, into a small hip bath, and left to wash in the middle of your cold guest room with only a curtain, or a shyness screen. For being private, you would scrub fast, dry faster, and hope no one knocked on the door in the middle of soaping. And the towels, name-lettered, fluffy, for sure not. Working, just. You are more likely to dry yourself with a square of light rubbing and a whisper of cotton than anything like a spa day. Let's go back now to your jobs as a nice guest. You must show you are thankful all the time, but quietly, saying, too much makes hosts not comfy, but too little thanks, and you risk being taken off the guest list for good. The right way is quietly shining. The right sound is loud enough for the hostess, but not the foot helper. The right topic is never how tired you are. One very strange thing you should do. Leave no sign. Your things should stay clean. Your bed made smoothly, even though another person will make it again. And your doings quiet. If someone finds a glove left behind, or a book with its back cracked open on the couch, that is a break. You were here to make the air better, not to leave a mark on it. And when it is time to go, you do not just pack up and leave. You must say goodbye to every person of the house. Leave a final note or small gift for your hostess, and say you hope that you have not bothered the quiet of her home. A flower pressed into a book, a small sewn handkerchief, something you smartly packed just in case. Because this is what good guests do. There is even a belief, a little strange but real, that staying too long brings bad luck. 3 nights is being nice, said one manner book. 4 asks for fate. So you time when you leave with doctor-like care, no matter how comfy the feather bed or how good the gossip from the helper. And once you are gone, the host will for sure talk about you, not in a mean way for sure, but to judge she was on time. For breakfast, he walked too loud. Her shoes left a mark. These are not just words. They are votes on if you will be asked again. So, as you get into the coach, gloved hands, folded hat just in the middle, you let yourself breathe. With relief, you did not break a thing. You did not stay too long. You did not get found humming in the hall. You were the perfect old-timey guest. Even if you secretly hate croquet, you have come back from your house visit, nicely said no to a third piece of boiled pudding, and your hair still has a faint smell of another person's lavender soap. But before you can fall in a thankful pile, you know you have to write letters, and not just any letters, right ones. Because in the old-timey world, talking was not just about saying the right thing. It was about writing the right thing with the right ink on the right paper, folded the right way, closed with the right wax, and scented with the right amount of sadness. Let's begin with the paper itself. Your writing paper must be cream or light blue dot, no flower sides, no cartoon ponies, for sure, no sparkles. A quiet set of letters in the top corner is okay, as long as it does not yell, "I made this myself," with dreams of being great envelopes. No glue. You close them with wax, of course. And yes, there is a right wax for every time. Bright red, that is, for love. Maybe two for love. Dangerously near to being bad. Black wax is for being sad. Blue is for friendships or family notes. Green, strange. Weird, a little bit witchy. Go on with care. Your ink must be black or dark blue. Violet is for flirting. Brown shows you are strange. And green ink, that is how you get talked about. You write with a dip pen, not a fountain pen. That is new rich. People behavior. And your handwriting, it better be slanted, graceful, and for sure yours. A single drop of ink could spoil a love story. Now, let's talk about what is inside. Letters were not just a way to say hi, they were social showpieces. Every sentence was important. You start with a nice hello, saying the person's title, if they have one. My dearest Lady Harrowfield, or my most loving cousin Edith. No one gets just a hi that would show you are American, or worse, relaxed. The main part of the letter is where things get hard. You are meant to be fancy, yet short, smart, yet shy. Personal, but not telling all. Show to little warmth, and you seem cold. Show too much, and you might be asking to marry. And yes, old-timey women did use letters to flirt, but in the most painfully quiet way you can think of. A line that is a little slanted, a soft smell, a well-picked group of words, like, I thought of our last talk often, which, trust me, was the 1870s way of saying, hey, you. But here is the hard part. Letters could be read out loud by other people to rooms full of other people. So, whatever you wrote had to be okay, with everyone hearing it. Many women even wrote their letters on scrap paper first, changing for tone and side space before copying it onto the final paper. Because yes, there was a rule for how far your lines should go. Leave too much white space, and it looks like a waste. Go too near to the sides, and you look like you need something now. Once your letter is perfectly made, you fold it in 3 parts this way, not that way. Put it in the envelope with the writing on the inside, so nosy eyes do not get a quick look. Then, melt a little bit of sealing wax. Press your own stamp into it. And there, one socially safe message, ready to be given by a man who walks 12 miles a day in heeled shoes. But what about letters you get? First, you wait. Answering too fast makes you look too ready. Waiting too long makes you seem cold. The good spot, 3 to 5 days. Enough time to show you have a life, not so much that you are forgotten. And once you open it, hopefully in the private of your front room, you read it 2 times. Once for what it says, once for how it sounds. Then you burn it, especially if it has anything that might someday be used to hurt you. That is right. Burning letters was a normal thing, especially for women. Better to get rid of a paper path of half-said feelings than to have it end up in your mother-in-law's sewing basket. And then there is the strange thing of scented paper. Some women put rose water, lavender, or orange flower oil on their paper. The smell stayed when the letter was opened, adding a smell part to the note for love. Yes, risky. Also, yes, because if your letter smelled, it meant something. Even a faint smell could be seen as flirting or worse. Proof. One faint smell of bergamot, and all of a sudden your name is being whispered behind fans. Letters were also tools for mean quietness. A slightly colder goodbye, a shorter line count, a change in ink color. These were signs. A letter ending in with sincere regards instead of your affectionate friend. That is a step down. A quick change from my dear to miss. Social war. And then there is the scary crossed letter. Think you have run out of paper. You turn the paper 90 degrees and write over your first lines, making a real grid of words. Saves money, yes. Easy to read. Not even a little. Getting a crossed letter meant either A, the writer loved you very much, or B, the writer had no idea how to stop themselves. Smart people still cannot agree. One woman, Eliza Smithson of Bath, was known for sending 12-page letters, all in crossed form. No one knew what they said, but everyone agreed she was very into it. Letters were also your safety line when sick or away. If you could not go to a dinner, you wrote a note of sadness. If you were grieving, you sent letters in black-edged envelopes. If you were mad, you wrote a letter in pencil so you could erase it later. Or, if you were feeling especially showy, you wrote one in ink, then ripped it up in a big way and pretended it had been sent. Of course, none of this was quick. The mail was good, yes, but slow by today's ways. You sent a letter on Tuesday. Were many mail times each day in cities, and some very ready women would sit by the window watching for the mailman, like old-timey fangirls waiting for show tickets. And yet, even with the worry, the show, the risk of bad stories by scented paper, many women loved writing letters. It was one of the few ways to show feelings they were fully in charge of. A letter was private, well-made, personal. You could be smart, you could be feeling, you could be yourself, or at least the you most wanted to be. So tonight, as you put your final folded note into its envelope, close it with wax and whisper, please do not get into the wrong hands. You feel a little bit of happiness, because in a world where talking to free was risky, writing became an act of quiet fighting back, and your fighting back smells faintly of lavender and a broken heart. You have written your letters, your tight dress is okay to, and you are back in the drawing room for another nice social group, because, of course you are. The tea is not warm. The biscuits taste like packed flour and lost hopes, and Lord Pelham is one more time trying to say why the Crimean War was good for how people felt. You need to sit down very badly. But wait, fire. You remember, you cannot, because it is still warm. Hello to the strange social thing of chair warming, and why old-timey women had to be very is the thing. In nice life, sitting in a warm chair, especially one just left by a man, was seen as a little bit not right. Why? Because it showed closeness, body heat, being there, maybe even the ghost of a bottom print, in a world that pulled back at the sight of a not-covered wrist. The staying warmth of someone's bottom was just too much. This rule, of course, was mostly for women. Men could sit down in any chair without much thought, as long as they were of the same or higher rank than whoever sat there before. But for women, the rules were layered, strange, and full of possible danger. Say, for example, that a gentleman had been sitting in the window chair talking about farm yields with another not fun man of the same rank. He gets up to get tea. The chair is now empty, yes, but it is also spoiled. You, the watching and ever so proper lady, must now wait. How long enough for the chair to get cold? A few minutes at least. Enough time to show that you are not so close with Lord Wheatcroft's legs that you would knowingly get cozy with his chair heat. It gets worse. Think that you do sit down, either because you forgot or because your knees fell from wearing 13 pounds of underskirts all day, and then someone sees a raised eyebrow, a look between friends, a note made for later gossip. Miss Trenwith sat in Sir Edmund's chair. They will whisper, still warm, no shame. Smart people are still not sure if this manner rule was everywhere, or more of a strange thing among the most stiff social groups. Some say it was a part of the bigger, old-timey worry with hidden closeness, where even a second-hand link through a shared spot was seen as almost risky. Others say it was more for show, a kind of big show niceness meant to show class and holding back. Either way, the meanings were real. A woman's link to furniture was not just about body. It was a sign. Which chairs you sat in, how you sat in them, when you sat, all showed yourself. Let's talk about getting a chair in a full drawing room. Getting a chair too hard could be seen as not like a lady. You were meant to wait nicely, maybe float by and happen to rest when someone said you should. And if a gentleman gave you a chair, you were to pause, say no once, maybe twice, before taking it. To ready, and you risked seeming bold. To not ready, and you seemed not thankful. The aim was to look as though you were doing him a good thing by letting yourself be seated. Then came where you sat. Certain chairs had social weight. The chair nearest the hostess was a spot of being liked. The armchair by the fire, wanted in winter, but risky, too much power. The sofa, tricky. It asked for close nearness and talk, so you had to be careful about who was already sitting there. A young lady sitting next to a bachelor without a helper. Almost a tabloid story. Even the tilt of your body while sitting was important. Feet flat, ankles together, hands in lap, or softly resting on the armrests. Never holding on, never spread out, and for sure no slouching. Slouching did not just make how you sat look bad, it showed laziness, or worse. Being comfy in old-timey manners was not trusted. You were meant to seem calm and pretty at all times, like a slightly moving statue. A woman, too, at ease in her chair, was one step from lying down, and lying down was what happened in boudoirs. Everyone knew what happened in boudoirs. No one said it out loud, but everyone knew, and let's not forget how you got up from a chair. Not too fast, you might seem scared. Not too slow, you might seem not ready. You pressed your gloved hands on the armrests, leaned a little forward, kept your knees together, and got up as if pulled by unseen string. If your skirts moved, fine. If they made a little sound, a little too much, if anything, got stuck on the chair and needed pulling, a ruin. Quirky side note, in some houses, chairs had sewn doilies or little pillows put in smart spots to stop prints. This was not just to keep them nice. If someone stood up and left a slightly flat pillow behind, a new pillow could be put in before the next sitter came, making sure no one had to face the scary truth that human bodies push things down. Then there was the rank of chairs themselves. Not all chairs were made the same. Wing-backed couches and carved walnut armchairs were for older guests. Soft, thin chairs or ottomans were for young ladies. A governess, for example, might be told to go to a piano stool, straight up, no padding, just not comfy enough to remind her of her place. Picking the wrong chair was a quiet mistake, like taking a Duke's cup or opening the wrong door and ending up in the billiards room. There is even a known event, maybe made bigger, of a young woman by mistake sitting in the club chair of a male guest. It was still warm. He had not gone far. The strange time that followed was said to have ended a new love story, though some stories say it started one instead. Smart people, of course, still argue so. Now back to you. You are waiting, carefully, looking at the room. The chair by the fire is empty, but it was filled moments ago by Captain Frobisher, whose love for plum wine is second only to his love for lying back with a sigh. You decide to wait, casually sit on the side of a nearby FOOTSTOOL. Smile calmly. Show the room you are neither so bold as to go into a man's warmth, nor so weak as to fall without a cushion. A woman of grace, of holding back, of inside seating worry. And when another chair is open, fully cooled, socially neutral, with just the right mix of form and cloth, you float into it with the calm of someone who spent her whole life getting ready for this exact moment. You have sat in the right way, with goodness, and your ankles not once gave you away, so you have gotten your chair with all the grace of a duchess on a cloud, managed to fold yourself into it without showing a single underskirt ruffle. But now you have come to the most tricky ground in the old-timey house. The old-timey parlor was not just a sitting room, it was the social testing ground, the place where guests were met, talks were well made, thoughts were lightly said, and right away taken back, and where women, especially young not married women, had to work like secret agents of keeping themselves safe. As you walk over the line into the parlor, you are already being watched, not in a clear way. No one is jumping at you with a measuring tape, but the second you come in, every pair of eyes is taking quiet notes. You're coming in, graceful or not sure. Your gloves, clean or a little too used. Your helper, brother, cousin, or a friend. You must say hello to the hostess first, always. A simple nod will not be enough. You need a little bow, a few nice words. What a lovely group of rhododendrons, and if right, a praise that walks the line between real and too much. Too much and you are tiring. Too plain and you are cold. The aim is to sound as though you have thought about her parlor a lot, but never were brave enough to say it until now. Then, if the room is full, you must pick your spot with care. Remember all those chair rules from before. Window risky. 2. Open to both sunlight and close watching. You find a spot on a love couch that already has a helper-friendly older woman sitting on one side. Perfect. You are right away seen as good and not waiting for a flirt. The pillow is a little bit down, and you are 90% sure someone else sat here before. Small talk, not real talk, not thoughts, not being truthful. No, this is soft talking. You might talk about the weather, chilly for July, don't you think? The last charity fair, such lovely flags, or a recent church talk, inspiring, and dare I say, fast. You have gone too far. You nod more than you talk. You laugh softly. You talk only when talked to, unless you are shown to the group and given a question. It is not a talk. It is a show of being in tune. And then there is the piano, the parlor's best jewel, and its biggest bad thing. If you play, you must act like you do not want to. The hostess may say, "Won't you give us a piece?" You must say no, at least once. "Oh, I am not good at it now." Only if no one minds. You may even say no 2 times. But say no a 3rd time, and you risk looking like a fun-spoiler. Say yes to fast, and you look like you want praise. It is a game of humble nearness to the edge. When you finally sit, you play something small, a light waltz, a Chopin prelude, not your best piece. Something to say, "I am learned," but not, "I am trying out for the Paris Conservatoire," unless, of course, have its own office. Sofas were risky. They made people talk, and worst of all, they had no armrests to make body lines. A young woman sitting on a sofa with a gentleman, especially by herself, was playing with fire. Not real fire, that is the hearth, but good name fire, that is why. Having a helper was very key. A watching aunt, a smartly placed cousin, someone to be sure that all talk stayed inside the lines of what is right, and no one reached for a second pillow. If you must sit on a sofa with a man, be sure there is at least 12 inches of daylight between you and a clear way to get out should anyone sneeze in a showy way. And never lie down. Not even apart, not even for a second. One leg folded under you, scandal. Feet curled. To the side, not right. The sofa is not your safe place. It is your tightrope if you do not play piano. But not like a show. If you read poetry, you do so without making eye contact. Eye contact shows you feel things. Not allowed pick apart with just the right mix of no meaning and good or bad. Clearness. Maybe something about lilies, and then the drinks and food come. Tea is okay. Water is better. Anything with alcohol, even a nice sherry, must be sipped slow, and with a look of prayerful thanks. Biscuits, take one no more. If you drop crumbs, you are a mess. If you say no at all, you risk making the hostess mad. It is a biscuit tightrope, and your whole tummy must work with care. Finally, after a good hour of saying for sure nothing of meaning, while carefully holding your teacup like it might blow up, you get ready to leave. Not right away, mind you. You must wait for the right quiet time in the talk. Best when someone else has already made a move to stand. You never want to be the first to leave. That is mean. The last clingy. So you stand. Thank the hostess. Laugh. Curse your tight dress. And think about that time when Mr. Penelagon's cuff touched your sleeve and almost gave you heart jumps. But in the parlor, you were perfect, held back, pretty, a little bit floral, and no one You have made it through tea, stayed away from the piano bench, and have not once talked about politics or a bad tummy. But even as you learn every rule from fan moves to talking curfews, there is one quiet bad thing that could make it all fall down your ankles. More clearly, how you are putting them. See, in the old-timey manner book. Not said, of course, but strongly made to happen. How a lady put her feet was no less than a good door bad statement. You could have the words of a duchess, the side of a porcelain angel, and a tight dress tight enough to change the weather in the area. But if your ankles were crossed in the wrong way, the world would gasp. Let's begin with the normal want to one side. This is the best pose. It says, I am shy. I am calm. I do not, for any reason, need leg muscles. It also says, I will stay this way for hours, while slowly losing all feeling from the knees down. Why the big worry with ankles, you ask? Because in old-timey England, ankles were exciting. Think about it. This was a time when even piano legs were covered with cloth because they looked too much like limbs. So, real girl limbs, especially ankles, were bad story fuel. An accidental show under a skirt bottom could send a room into quiet disbelief. A planned show. That was social fire. Smart people still talk about if this certain worry came from real shyness or a kind of held-in social thrill-seeking. Some say it was the one safe spot for old-timey minds to put their interest. After all, but in this proper world, saying they were there was almost risky. It is the same reason why seeing a wrist at a ball could make for hot poetry. When all is hidden, even the most normal show becomes electric. Back to your chair. Crossing your ankles at all. Risky. Crossing them tight. Very much not right. You are quietly showing you are relaxed. Worse. Fighting back. Even worse. Comfy. Away from judging aunties. Ever were brave enough for such a thing. Now, crossing your legs at the knee. Unthinkable. This was not just not nice. It was low class. Legs crossed at the knee. Pushed the line of your dress up. Changed how you sat from straight up to suggestive. And risked showing the very curve the world acted like was not there. Cross your legs with men and women, and you might as well stand on the parlor table and say you are a lady of loose ways and comfy hips. Even magazines joined in. Manor guides had pictures of proper foot placing, often drawn in a style more seen with furniture pictures than body parts. One well-liked women's paper called ankle crossing as the body betrayal of not good thought. Called out for bad thinking just because your toes pointed the wrong way. There is even a known case, maybe made bigger, of a new young lady who crossed her ankles during a garden party and was not ever asked back. Not because she set a fire, not because she made the vicar mad, because her left heel was on top of her right, and everyone saw, and that was it. Let's talk about moving. Let's say you need to fix your feet. Maybe your shoes hurt, or your legs have gone to sleep because old-timey women were meant to pose like stuffed swans. How do you move without showing you are really with legs? Answer, quietly. You lift your feet together, never apart, move them an inch, and put them back as though moved by divine foot helpers. No swinging, no bouncing, no easy hanging of the foot like you are some French show dancer waiting for a drink and tapping your toe. Total heresy. Any kind of beat-like movement from under the dress bottom was seen as wiggling, a sign of not having fun, being worried, or worse. Liking music Old-timey life feared nothing more than a young woman with jazz in her shoes who came with their own rules. Slippers were for inside only and made to be quiet. A lady's shoe should not make a sound when she walks. Heels were small, bottoms were thin, and boots laced all the way up, making sure that if heaven forbid someone did see your ankle, it would be covered in at least 3 layers of good or bad cloth. Even how you stood was looked at hard. If sitting was the test, standing was the exam. Feet together, ankles not touching, so you do not look knock-kneed. Toes a little pointed out like you are about to bow at any time, which to be honest you probably are. Moving your weight from foot to foot that shows you are not patient. Standing on one foot, flirty. Standing pigeon-toed. That means you are not taught and maybe French. And then there is walking. Oh, the dance of old-timey strolling. You never hurry, you float. You are walking like a man. Too short and you are mincing, which some thought was fake. You aim for the kind of walk that says, I am going somewhere not important, but with great goodness. Some girls learned for this, for real. They walked with books on their heads, worked in front of mirrors, and changed their footsteps to match the beat of what was okay, Grace. It was not about where you went, it was how you got there, of course. Fighting back was there. Some women crossed their ankles on purpose. Artists, actresses, American visitors, the kind of women who smiled at people they did not know, and laughed without covering their mouths. The world judged them, feared them, gossiped about them, but also quietly wanted to be like them. There is even a diary note from 1874 where a young woman wrote, I sat as they do in Paris, ankles crossed like a boy. That is how deep the ankle rules went. A foot move could feel like a crowning. So tonight, as you sit one more time, your feet flat, ankles gently touching, it is a persona. You are showing goodness with every joint. You are holding your whole good name between 2 sewn slippers and a life of being steady. And should you ever, just once, just what you are doing, because maybe, just maybe, you do. You have made it through the sitting, the standing, the talking, gymnastics, and the tricky place of socially okay biscuit eating. You are a boss of the drawing room. But now you go outside, and with that, the great old-timey power sign flutters on top of your well-placed curls. Your hat. If there is one thing that could show your social rank faster than an unwatched ankle or a badly folded fan, it was what you wore on your head. The old-timey hat was not just pretty, it was your passport, your class sign, your talk starter, and in more than one bad case, your birdhouse. Let's be clear, going outside with no hat, unthinkable, no matter your rank, reason, or weather news. A lady was seen in public with her head covered, even just walking from coach to shop or garden to church. Your hat must be on. To leave the house with a bare head was to seem not helped in spirit, not shy, on the spot. And maybe a socialist, but not just any hat, would work. No. There was a whole hat order to get through. What you wore was based on your age. If you mixed up an outing hat with an afternoon bonnet. Let's begin with the bonnet, the main stone of old-timey hats. Bonnets came in many styles, had a long front that framed the face and kept your side from the sun and nosy eyes. Good for shy young ladies, a bit like wearing your own personal horse eye covers. but make it style. The bonnet's strings, just as coded, tied tightly under the chin. Shy, tied loose, or to one side, a little forward, let to flutter, untied. Risky, especially if there was wind. Untied strings plus wind. Movie-like flirtation. Gossip by tea time. Then there was the walking hat. Shorter front, more pretty, perfect for walking around. These hats might have feathers, fake flowers, or even small birds. Yes, real stuffed birds. Old-timey women wore whole forest worlds on their heads with the seriousness of temple holy people. One brave hat maker once made a hat that had a toy bird that chirped. It was banned from the royal building after it bothered 3 hymns and a marriage plan. For formal times, there was the toque, a small no-front hat that sat prettily on top of the head like a sewn cupcake. Fancy, not in the way, and good for the opera funerals, or giving mean quiet praises at big parties. But if you were riding, here comes the riding hat, stiff, dash-fronted, often velvet or felt. It was the one time you could look a little bit scary and still be seen as dressed right. Riding hats said, "Yes, I have a horse. No, I will not race you. Yes, I can get off without a bad story." And we have not even talked about widows. Hats. In sadness. What you wore on your head became a secret sign of your grief stage. Full sadness. Thick black crepe, no pretty things, and a widow's cover that covered half your face. As time went by, the cover got shorter in the end. Small, pretty touches were allowed. Maybe a jet brooch or a black feather. This change was known as half sadness, and the hat was the main sign of your feeling availability. Smart. People still talk about if these step-by-step hat changes were comforting acts or mind torture. Probably both. Think about knowing someone's broken heart based on the length of their cover and the number of birds stuck to their front. Hat materials also said a lot. Straw was for summer. Velvet for winter. Silk meant class. Wool meant practical. Felt meant you were probably going to see an ant. Lace edges showed girlness. Strings hinted at being young. Jet beads meant you were not here for small talk. Your hat pin, not just pretty, it was a tool, a long, thin spike used to hold your hat in place, and now and then to defend one's good name, dignity, or personal space. On a full bus, there are at least 3 known times of women poking not-right suitors with hat pins. One of those women later married the man she poked. Love in the time of chairs. But past the useful and the showy, your hat decided how the world saw you. A hat too fancy for your class. You were trying too hard, too plain for your money. Not thankful, too young for your age. Sad, too old for your age. Planning. A hat said, "This is who I am, how I feel, what I want to be, and if I have inside plumbing." One strange, fringe little fact. Some old-timey women named their hats. Diaries from that time have notes like, "Wore Charlotte today." "Too windy," and Gladys got praises at the garden party. These were not just things. These hats had selves, good names, and favorite outings. Hat rules did not end when you went inside, either. You could not just walk into a friend's house and throw your bonnet on the closest couch. No, you waited to be taken to the coat room. You took off your hat with care, put it upside down to keep its shape. Never on a piano, bad luck, and never on a bed, worse luck. If your hat was very large, you might take it off before sitting down, but only if your hostess took off hers first. Hat order, remember? And then there were the Sunday hats. These were big showpieces, plumed, flowered, braided masterworks that took up more cubic inches than your real head. They were for church, and their size often went with how much you loved God. One memory tells of a woman whose Easter bonnet blocked half the church. The vicar gently asked her to take it off. She said no. The next week, she wore a bigger one, iconic. So today, as you reach for your hat stand and pick your bonnet straw with shy cream string and a silk rose, you do so with awe. You hold it with your longest hat pin, tilted just so, and look at yourself, it says. Good, humble, but can be smart. Just the kind of hat an old-timey lady needs. And should the wind catch your strings just right, well, let them whisper what they want. You have pinned your hat, made it through the parlor, kept your ankles away, and you have managed to sip not warm tea while acting like you love someone's sowing of a cabbage. Now you are back in the safe place of your own room. Gloves off, slippers on, pen ready, and it is time to make something even more soft than a piano sonata or a letter. But not just any letter. A lacy, scented, heavily meaning old-timey lady's letter. Because in the time before Ms. emojis or min-quiet group chats, your handwriting was your tool and your paper was your shield, and sometimes you needed a little extra thing to show. What old-timey words could not, like perfume or hidden ink or well-torn corners. Let's start with the paper. Not just any paper will do. You reach for your best stock, ivory, not white dot. Ivory shows softness. White is too bright, too medical, too desperate. Your name or letters are raised, never printed, and the sides smooth, unless you are feeling very flirty, in which case a deckled edge, those nice frayed sides, is your almost legal bad thing. Then you reach for your ink, black for work, blue for being friendly, violet if you are feeling flirty, and sepia if you are trying to show depth and thought without looking like you are trying too hard. Green ink, as we have seen before, is for rebels and poets. Use it with your own risk. But now you add your secret thing. Scent. Some women dipped their letter paper lightly in rose water or orange flower before drying it flat between books. Others dabbed perfume on a different paper and put it in the envelope as a scented fake, letting the smell waft in a showy way, without risking a scene stain on the real note. Scented letters were old-timey code. A letter that smelled a little of lavender was calming and like family. One dabbed with violet was for love, wanting, longing, gardenia, bold, jasmine, suggestive, musk. Well, now you are playing with fire, and everyone knows it. One fringe favorite way was warming the envelope a little before it was sent, enough to wake up the perfume and be sure it hit the person getting it right in the old memories. Of course, do too much, and your letter comes smelling like a potpourri fire. Quietness, as always, was key. And then there was what you wrote. Forget. Hi, how are you? Old-timey letter writing was feeling ballet. Every line had layers. You might start with, I trust this finds you in good health, which secretly meant, I have been thinking of you at strange hours. You might talk about an object. The book you lent me has been a fine friend. As code for, I am not fully over our last talk. In one diary, a woman tells of writing to her childhood friend with the words, "The violets you planted bloom." Still, a flowery nod to feelings she could not say out loud. Another woman once ended a letter with, "Your servant in all but name." That is almost old-timey for "marry me yesterday." But some women went more. They used hidden codes, pressed flowers between the folds. "Forget-me-nots" meant remembrance. "Yellow rosebuds" meant being jealous. "White lilies," either sadness or innocence, based on where it was and how wet they were. Sewn thread, a single stitch through the corner of a letter. Red for passion, blue for loyalty, white for hope. This was quiet, private, and almost not seen by anyone not in the know. Microscript, tiny. Notes squeezed between lines or in sides, readable only to the person getting it. Do you remember? In tiny script put between "yours sincerely" and the ending flourish. And then there was lace paper, softly die-cut paper with lacy, frilly sides. Normal in Valentine's Day letters, but sometimes used as everyday flair by women who liked their drama paper thin and scalloped. Of course, lace paper was not cheap. You did not just use it on any friend. It was a statement, a pretty dagger. What about hidden ink? Yes, it was real. Some ladies used lemon juice alum solutions or watered-down milk to write secret notes between the lines of normal letters, heated gently over a lamp. The hidden writing would show. This was usually used for risky gossip, forbidden flirting, or mean quiet talk that could not be said out loud, but needed to be written down somewhere. Of course, the risk of being found was high. Think of your brother, by mistake, warming your letter to dry, a raindrop and all. Of a sudden learning that you think Lady Biddington's wig is shaped like a confused hedgehog. Whoops. Was important. Before, envelopes were normal. Many letters were something. You folded the paper into a square, closed it with wax, and wrote the address on the blank side. The way of the folds could show closeness. Left over right was formal. Right over left was personal, tucking a corner under itself. That was basically old-timey flirt talk. Even the wax seal had layers. A plain seal was fine, but a stamped sign, now we are talking. Some women had name-lettered seals. Others chose animals. An owl for smarts, a fox for wit, a swan for loyalty. One famously bad new young lady used a broken heart, very not quiet, very talked about. And finally, there was what you did not write. Leaving space at the bottom of a page showed holding back, not signing your full name, just letters or yours, asked for guessing, not answering a letter at all. That could start a fight or a rumor or a very detailed diary note from your cousin. Eleanor. Smart people still argue if these coded letters were meant to go against social lines or make them stronger. Some say the whole scented paper thing was a part of love theatrics. Others believe it was one of the only places where women had real power, a private language of suggestion and scent built from scraps and script. So tonight, as you sit in your writing spot with candles and the faint smell of dried rose petals, you dip your pen, you make your message. You fold it slowly with thought. One spritz of lavender, one wax seal, one stitch of white thread in the corner. Will he see? Only if he knows how to read you right. And if he does not, well, you always have green ink. It is a cool morning. You have put on your hat, tastefully feathered, your gloves, not too new, and your dress, shy in neckline, bold in pleats. You are off for a walk with mother, arm in arm, head held high, and your eyes firmly pointed at nothing, because in old-timey life, eye contact was not just a matter of paying attention. It was a loaded tool. Look too long, and you are exciting. Look away too fast, and you are not trusted. Meet a man's look for more than 2 seconds without a helper there. You may as well have written your wants in violet ink across your forehead with an exclamation mark. Let's start with the most simple rule. A young lady never stares. Staring, especially at men, was seen as pushy, low-class, and dangerously bold. If you had to look at someone, you did so with a soft look, never direct, never sharp. Think Mona Lisa, not a hawk waiting. Even if someone said something amazing, like, "I believe steamships will never truly replace sails," you could listen but not look. And if a gentleman stared at you, the right answer was not to give back his look or move your lashes. No, no. You put your eyes down, shyly, tilted your chin a little, and gave the smallest smile if you knew him. If you did not act like the view just became very, very interesting. Why? All the eye drama, old-timey life, worked on a very showy sense of what is right. Every move, every look was part of a quiet play. Eye contact could mean want, fighting, being truthful, telling a lie, or, most bad of all, interest. To show interest was to break the spell of girl mystery, to break the cover, truly, with your pupils. That is why women were often taught to look through people, not at them, to keep their focus soft, not scary, easy, the kind of look you would expect from someone always reading poetry about clouds. It gets weirder. In some manner manuals, certain lengths of eye contact were talked about. A look of less than 1 second. Okay, quick, proper. A look of 1 to 2 seconds. Suggestive. Okay, if followed by a head turn. A look over 2 seconds. Scandal. A look with a smile. Dear heavens, get the smelling salts ready. Historical letters tell of women practicing their looks in mirrors, holding their look for just long enough to be seen, then looking away as if it were all a happy mistake. One woman wrote that she learned the art of seeing without being seen, which sounds like either a superhero start or just another Tuesday in 1873. And men, well, they had a little more room. A man could look. In fact, a suitor was meant to make eye contact, as long as it was softened by good posture and right sleeve length. Too bold, and he was a cad. Too shy, and he was let go. But when a man's look stayed a little too long on a woman's face, especially in a public garden, or while she was picking turnips at the market, rumors grew like ivy. There is a strange little fact from 1851. During a talk at a women's college, a visiting smart man was so amazing that several students were told by staff to stop looking so hard. Their punishment, a full week of watched needlepoint. No eye contact needed. Then there was the fan trick. If a woman wanted to say hi to someone, she could do it through the fan. Look behind it, peek above it, let her eyes flick toward a man while acting like she liked some sewing. The fan became a social wall, a lacy way to say, "I see you," without saying, "I am open for marriage and bad waltzes." But what if you made a mistake? Say you lock eyes with someone at a party for too long. You panic. What do? Luckily, there were ways out. Look past them. Act like you saw someone else. Play with your glove buttons. Distraction is grace. Right away, whisper something to your friend as if you just remembered a key hat update. If all else fails, Faint, a classic, needs good timing and a somewhat soft floor. And what if someone makes not trite eye contact with you? Let's say a man, not known, not helped, and probably to tan, meets your look on a walk. You feel it, that long, not allowed stare. Your answer is planned. Stay calm. Look away with grace. Do not say hi. If your mother is there, she will frown for you. If your brother is there, he might ask the bad man to a fight. Although most fights by then were not real, usually with cold shoulders at later dances. In more relaxed groups, women could make slightly longer eye contact, especially during love times. But even then, it was seen as a time of feeling danger. Books of the time are full of scenes where heroes met his eyes for but a moment, long enough to feel the world shake. Smart people still argue if these shakes were from love, fear, or the tight effects of corsets on blood flow. Here is a fun fringe thing: the mirror look. Women were allowed, told even, to look at themselves in mirrors, not out of being vain, but because it was seen as practice. You learned how to be seen without really seeing, how to hold your neck where your chin should tilt, how to let your eyes drift and land like snowflakes, not daggers. Whole groups of women trained their faces like ballerinas. One misplaced muscle could mean a wrong meaning. There were times it was different for all this. Of course, actresses, for one, stage women were trained in showing looks, how to cast wanting looks, fighting stares, glimmers of joy. This made them both loved and very not trusted. A woman who used her eyes too well was for sure hiding something, and if she used them in public, dangerous. Some top-class women broke the rules on purpose. The known Lady Standish once was said to have held a dinner guest's look across the table for a whole course, like a hawk over a game. Someone said it caused a 3-week social spiral and a very poetic story in the Morning Herald. So tonight, as you sit by candlelight, you practice the art of the old-timey look. Soft, down, showing, but only to the right person at the right moment, through the proper lens of lace, distance, and believable deniability. You are not blind, you are watchful, and someday, when the moment is perfect and the bad story is worth it, you will look up just long enough to let them know you see everything. Your eyes have done their job, stayed away from bad stories, shown interest, and maybe even started a heart flutter or two. But now you are in yet another sitting room, trying to enjoy the third. Talk about rhubarb jams in a week, and someone asks a question, a casual one, an icebreaker. What shall we talk about? Oh no, because in old-timey England, conversation was not just a sharing of ideas. It was a battlefield full of forbidden topics, booby-trapped praises, and the always-there threat of quick good name collapse. Let's start with the basics. Topics. A lady could safely talk about, in public, the weather. Always, hopefully with a small thought, like it's turned rather sharp lately. Flowers, especially in terms of their bloom times or ripeness for funerals. Pets, small fluffy ones. Large dogs were not trusted. Books, certain books. Dickens, fine. Byron, risky. Mary Wollstonecraft, please no. Travel, mostly scenic or plant descriptions. The less you say about real people, the better. T. An eternal safe zone. And that is about it. Now, the forbidden list, which is very long. money. Never say it, not how much things cost, not who has it, and for sure, not how little you might have. To speak of money was seen as coarse. Rich people knew they were rich, and poor people were acting like they were not. Health. Body complaints were for sure off limits. You could say you were indisposed or had a turn, but anything more clear risked sending the room into a spiral of imagined sicknesses. Besides, saying digestion or breathing systems exist was almost as bad as saying ankles. Politics. Just know, unless you were repeating your father's views in a very vague tone. Even then, walk carefully. The wrong thought about the corn laws could get you unasked to a picnic. Religion. Okay only in the most bland Church of England on a Thursday sort of way. Anything evangelical or a little bit Catholic was to be kept for whispered hallways. Feelings. Unless you are describing your love for a pet canary, or your sadness upon the falling of leaves. Emotional clearness is a landmine. I was deeply moved is fine. I am lonely is a cry for help and social taking away. But the most dangerous subject of all, men. You do not bring up a gentleman unless he is royal, dead, or both. Even talking about your own brothers or cousins too much could be seen as a quiet way of showing off connections. And, heaven forbid, you talk about a gentleman's looks, one innocent word about someone's shoulders and all. Of a sudden, you are called bold. This is where things get extra silly. Say you want to talk about someone you like. You cannot say, he looked well in his waistcoat. You must say something like, his tailor seems particularly attentive of late, which somehow, in a weird way, sounds even worse. Old-timey women became masters of the coded comment. Everything was said in terms of meaning and turning away. The Jennings boy is to travel north for the season. He is avoiding a bad story. Miss Penelagon has taken an interest in geology. She is spending a lot of time with that bachelor geologist. Lady Ramsbotham has redecorated her drawing room. She is spiraling. This soft sword fight of language turned talks into puzzles. Everyone spoke as if they were making riddles, and everyone else answered as though reading telegrams. Even praise was tricky. You could not just say, what a lovely dress. That would show obsession. Instead, say, the fabric catches the light so cheerfully. Praising someone's cooking directly was too close. Better to say, these biscuits are as light as the breeze that carried us in. And forget joking about anything. Sarcasm, irony, satire, all minefields. You might be funny, but you had to give your wit through such layers of shyness that most people missed it entirely. Some women became famous for this. One hostess was so quiet that it took her guests 10 years to realize she had been roasting them all along. Now, let's talk about what happens when someone makes a talking misstep. Say someone says, I've read the new poetry by that Shelley fellow. Everyone goes still. Eyebrows twitch. Teacups hover, because Shelley means emotion, which means feelings, which could mean atheism, which leads to chaos. Your job in this moment is to save the conversation. Change the subject quickly. How interesting. Did anyone see the rhododendrons in Lady Barnstable's garden? Boom, safety, back. The moment passes. This plan had a name. Deflection with dignity. It was the social art of protecting everyone from the truth that people sometimes had opinions. But of course, fighting back simmered. Under the doily-covered surface, some women used the rules against themselves to get power. They made big pauses. They dropped slightly not right terms, like feverish or French fashion, and then pretended to be sorry for them. They made whole selves around being not normal while staying just inside the lines of what was okay. One fringe example. A woman named Georgiana Tolliver was said to have brought up the moving of frogs at every social gathering she went to. Why? No one knows. But it was odd enough to become her trademark. She was invited everywhere just because people wanted to see if she would do it again. Smart people still argue if Georgiana was socially tone-deaf or secretly smart. Some believe her frog fixation was a planned move to distract from her cousin's elopement. Others say she just really liked frogs. Now, there were allowed times when rules could bend at women's gatherings. Talk grew slightly. You could talk about fashion in more detail. You could laugh more freely. Some even dared to talk about novels with feelings in them. It was still all wrapped in politeness, but the gloves were, if not off, at least unbuttoned and in private letters. That is where truth lived. What you could not say out loud in the sitting room, you wrote in lavender ink on pressed paper. You confessed your boredom, your hunger, your secret hatred of Mrs. Athelthorpe's hat. The spoken word was a dance, the written word a revolution. So tonight, as you sip your pretend tea and nod along to a very boring talk about corn yields in Wiltshire, you know exactly how to survive. You ask polite questions, you fake interest, and when someone dares to say something real, you pause, smile, and offer them a lifeline. How about those rhododendrons? So you have learned how to sit, speak, walk, and even blink like a lady of perfect old-timey manners. But what if, in a moment of not guarded impulse or gasp interest, you wanted to speak to a man alone, in private, without your gradient looming like a judging gargoyle in the back? Well, you could not. Hello to the scary world of the old-timey chaperone system, where no talk between a proper young lady and a gentleman could be left to chance, chemistry, or the bad force of direct eye contact. If you wanted to talk to a man, you needed a witness, a buffer, a walking, breathing form of social caution. Your chaperone. The chaperone might be your mother, your older sister, a watchful aunt, or, in some cases, a trusted governess with a scary good memory. Their job was not just to go with you. It was to watch, redirect, and if needed, step in. And no, you did not get to pick when or if she was there. In old-timey England, not watched talks between not married men and women were potential ticking scandals. A 5-minute chat on a park bench could fuel weeks of gossip. A walk in the garden without a third person. You may as well start planning the wedding or the exile. The rules were very clear. If a gentleman came to see you, he did so with your family there. If he wrote to you, the letter was often read out loud by a third person first. If you met him in public, you could only speak if introduced, and never for longer than it takes to talk about the weather or praise his horse. If he asked you anywhere, funny. The answer was no until a real engagement or royal order. Smart people still argue. If the chaperone system protected women or just put them in prison in layers of flower wallpaper and always being the third wheel, some say it gave women the safety they needed in a world obsessed with how things look. Others say it was a way of control, making sure every talk could be watched, written down, and judged. Here is how a normal chaperone visit might go. You are in the drawing room, putting flowers in order with planned casualness. The gentleman comes, you curtsy, he bows, your mother comes in, she stays in the room, always. You start to speak, Mr. Bixby. How nice to see you, Miss Fairchild. The weather has been unusually cooperative. Indeed, your mother coughs nicely. You act like you are very into a nearby porcelain swan, Mr. Bixby. Fixes his gloves, says something about the price of gooseberries, and by the time he leaves, you have said about 20 words and felt about 200 things. If he is really interested, he will come back, over and over, and each time your chaperone will be right there, sipping not warm tea and acting like she does not hear everything. Now, let's think you are outside. Old-timey outings were tightly planned. You could go to picnics, concerts, garden parties, but never alone. Your chaperone had to be in clear sight, within hearing distance, and best at a slightly in-the-way angle. You might walk with the gentleman, but only if she was walking just behind, not beside you, not leading, always just close enough to ruin a moment. And heaven help you if you laughed too loudly or stayed too long by a hedge. Your chaperone would clear her throat, fix her gloves, or tap her sun umbrella in the universal code for back off. She is not yours yet, of course. Chaperones had their own good names to keep. A loose chaperone was just as bad as a not-watched girl. If Mrs. Southworth let her niece speak to the curate for more than 10 minutes, people started asking why. Was she matchmaking? Was she not careful? Did she have gout and forget to get up from her chair? The stakes were silly, and there were levels of chaperonage. Mothers were the gold standard, trusted, scary, and often likely to give long talks about character and digestion. Aunts were solid backups, less feeling involved, but razor sharp with social details. Governesses were useful, especially for younger girls, but they had to walk carefully. They were workers, after all. Friends, only if they were married. A married friend could chaperone in some groups, but only if she was known to be quiet and not likely to flirt herself. Quirky footnote. One manor guide said that a proper chaperone should have no interest in being social herself during an outing. She must remain as stone, it said. Imagine giving your whole afternoon to making sure someone else does not smile too much. Still, the system was not fully without cracks. Some clever women used their chaperones as cover. You might plan a walk through the park, and while your chaperone stops to look at swans or cry about the fall of moral poetry, you share quick words or even a handkerchief with your suitor. This was risky, thrilling, and often the only way to move a relationship. Past polite weather talk. There is even a known case where a woman paid her chaperone to look the other way. During carriage rides, Mrs. Danvers suffers terribly from motion sickness, she said sweetly. It is best if she rests her eyes. Smart people think Mrs. Danvers was resting her eyes while the couple held hands under a travel blanket. But not everyone had that luxury. Many young women found the constant presence tiring. You could not vent, explore, tell secrets, or even ask questions without a pair of ears twitching nearby. You might write your thoughts down, but as we learned, even letters were not private. Trust was not assumed. It was earned over years and broken in seconds. So what happened if you were caught alone with a man? Nothing quiet. Whispers, guesses, immediate suspicion of engagement, or worse, a compromise of goodness that could, in some cases, wreck a woman's whole marriage future. One accidental walk across a sunlit lawn could end in a forced proposal or social shunning, even if nothing happened, even if you were just lost, or caught in the rain, or asking for directions. How things looked ruled. So tonight, as you see yourself in your proper walking dress, you look to your left. There she is, your chaperone, watching, waiting, ready to protect you or stop you, depending on the moment. And you realize every step you take is shadowed, not by danger, but by a very polite, very firm, very unshakable presence named Aunt Lavinia. You have stood up to the chaperones, the language of lace, and the dangerous world of conversational holding back. But now it is time to enter the true Colosseum of old-timey etiquette. No, not the ballroom floor. That would be too obvious. We are talking about the precise, pulse-raising, judgment-heavy ritual of the dance invitation. And to be clear, we do not mean the free-for-all dance floor mess of modern weddings. Oh no, in the old-timey era, a dance was not just a dance. It was a statement, a plan, a public declaration of alignment, interest, and possibly lifelong romantic results. It began with the dance card. You come to the ball after making sure your gown is right, your gloves spotless, and your chaperone within 3 feet, and you are given a small, pretty booklet, often tied with a ribbon dot. Inside are numbered slots for each dance of the night, maybe 20 or more. Your job, to fill them with gentlemen's names, but not just any names. Your dance card had to balance social duty with quiet ambition, family, friends, boring cousins, and your chaperone's favorite vicar all needed a slot. Leave them out, and someone would for sure notice. But too many safe names, and you would find yourself waltzing your way into complete not-being-known. Enter. Mr. Possibly interesting. He comes, Bose asks. May I have the pleasure of the 4th quadrille? You accept because etiquette demands you do not turn down a dance unless you are truly not well. You write his name carefully. The 4th slot is now sealed. And let's be clear, this is not Tinder. You are not allowed to change partners mid-dance, or decide you are not feeling the vibe. You are locked in for 10 structured, heavily watched minutes, and heaven forbid you accept 2 dances from the same man before you are engaged. That is where it gets risky. In fact, this was one of the clearest social red flags of the era. Dancing twice with a man in a single night meant something. It might not scream engaged, but it for sure whispered interested. And whispers traveled fast. Smart people still argue if this rule was made to protect women's good names, or just to keep the ballroom turning like a gentle carousel. Some say it fostered variety of talk. Others say it just turned courtship into a dance-based watch system. Now, let's talk about the waltz. Ah, yes, the waltz. That slow turning, a little bit bad embrace that changed the old-timey dance scene forever. When it first came to England, it caused absolute panic. Why? Because it involved touching, real, gloved, breath-sharing closeness before the waltz. Dances were more like timed promenades. Partners barely touched beyond fingertips and shared more looks than steps. But the waltz, that was chest to chest, well, corset to coat arms around waists. A brief yet blazing bubble of closeness right in the middle of a chandelier-lit battlefield. At first, only married couples or daring new young ladies tried it, but as the years went on, it became socially okay with watching. Your chaperone still watched from the sides like a hawk in pearls. One misplaced hand, one too long look, and all of a sudden the room was murmuring. Proper form was everything. The man's hand was to rest lightly at your waist, not your lower back, not your rib cage, the waist, and your gloved hand belonged softly in his, not gripping like you are trying to hold yourself through temptation. Elbows up, posture firm, eyes vaguely somewhere else. You were supposed to be graceful, fluid, calm, but under those layers of tulle and tension, you were calculating. Every step, every turn was a code. I'm listening. I'm interested. I may or may not have smelled your hair, and I regret nothing. The trickiest part, ending the dance at its end. Your partner bowed. You curtsied. He took you to your seat. Never alone. Public delivery was a must, and you shared the briefest of nice words. A delightful polka, Mr. Thistlethwaite, charmed Miss Merriweather. Then he was gone, or circled back to hover just enough to be noticed. And here is a quirky fringe little fact. Some women made whole fan codes for dancing. If you held your fan closed when approached, it meant, I am engaged for this dance. Slightly open, I might be convinced. Fully open and fluttering. Dear heavens, yes. Then there were the rare bad boy moments. Suppose a gentleman you would rather not dance with asks for a slot. You cannot just say no. That would be not ladylike. Instead, you use the classic, oh dear, I believe I am already engaged for that dance. But this comes with risks. If he checks your card and sees an empty slot, scandal. You must now find someone to fill that slot right away to keep your alibi. It is social. Tetris, with hearts on the line. And sometimes, a girl might just not dance. Maybe she was sick or mourning or making a silent protest against the available gentleman. In those cases, she might sit quietly, her card blank, her look neutral, but that came with its own danger. The scary wallflower label. Wallflowers were women who, for whatever reason, were not asked to dance. Some were shy, others too smart. Some just did not play the game well. But once labeled, it was hard to shake. You might become that girl with the bookish opinions and the tight gloves. Invitations would dry up. Prospects would vanish. Yet many wallflowers used their seat to watch, to learn, to bide their time. One famously wrote, I did not dance, but I did gather information, which is terrifying and delightful. So tonight, as the string quartet starts a known tune, you float onto the floor. Your gloves are tight. Your card is full. Your chaperone watches with the eyes of a hawk who once had dreams. You take your partner's hand. You step, and for a few dizzying moments, under the gaslight and gold cornices, you are not just a young lady surviving etiquette. You are dancing the edge of danger, one turn at a time. By now you have successfully made it through the drawing room, decoded looks, waltzed with holding back, and survived the judging stares of every sewn sofa in sight. But all of that, every flutter, every fan signal, fades in comparison to the most scary arena in old-timey society, the dinner table. Because this was not just about eating, it was about performing a flawlessly planned act of grace while covered in lace and surrounded by gravy-based landmines. Let's set the scene. You are going to a formal dinner at the home of Lord and Lady Featherstone. You have dressed right, your gown shy yet in style, your gloves impeccable, and your hunger locked in a drawer. Somewhere behind your social worry, you are seated between two gentlemen strategically picked by the hostess, and your job for the next 2 hours is to make small talk, eat without chewing with sound, and avoid doing one of the many dining no-nos. Let's begin with the napkin. It is put softly on your lap, not tucked into your collar, unless you are under the age of 6 or have a dangerously floppy soup. You unfold it quietly in one smooth move and place it across your lap as if it just floated there by mistake. Wipe your mouth quietly. Never wipe your face. Never blow your nose. Never, under any case, drop it. Dropping your napkin could mean a mess. If a footman gets it, fine. If you bend down to grab it, you risk showing a quick look of ankle, or worse, losing your hat feathers in the soup. Then the cutlery problem. There is so much of it. Forks and knives and spoons lined up like armies, and the rule is simple. Work from the outside in, but in the panic of the moment, your mind goes empty. You look to your left. Lady Arbuthnot is confidently using a small fish fork. To your right. Mr. Trelawney is poking something with a spoon you are pretty sure is for looks. You breathe. You copy them. You survive. But the real horror, the food itself, old-timey food, could be fancy, not known, or just very slimy consomme aspics, jellied eels, brain cutlets, and boiled calves' feet were all okay game. There is even a dish called collared tongue, which sounds like a wrestling move, but is really cold meat shaped into a gelatinous tube, and you must eat it nicely. Take small bites. Chew with your mouth closed. Never speak with food in your mouth. Never reach. Never salt your food before trying it. That shows you doubt the cook's skill, which is reason for exile. You must not slurp, smack, stab hard, break bread with your teeth, chase peas around your plate like you are hurting them, and if you do not like something, just leave it quietly, making a face, pushing it aside, or, heaven forbid, asking what it is will earn you a permanent spot on the scandal list. Then we have the sauce problem. Sauces were everywhere. Cream sauces, bread sauces, mint sauces, and strange brown gravies with hopes. But sauces were dangerous. They dripped, they splashed, they betrayed. One flick of the wrist, and all of a sudden, your elbow-length gloves are covered in tarragon horror. Smart people still debate if the overuse of sauces was food preference or a societal plan to test calmness under fire. After all, if you can keep grace with hot goose fat dripping across your crinoline, you can handle anything. Let's talk about conversation during dinner. Yes, you must speak. No, you may not say anything remotely real. Stick to neutral topics. Gardens, travel, the weather in Belgium. Never talk about the food itself unless it is to murmur, delicious, or most agreeable. Praise the hostess, but not too often. And for sure, no jokes about digestion, or pickled things, or anything French after 1871. What if someone says something not right, like talking about factory workers, or politics? You smile nicely, tilt your head, and gently change the subject. How charming those dahlias are this year. Let's not forget alcohol. Wine was served with most courses, but for a lady, holding back was key. You could sip, you could nod with thanks, but finishing a glass, dangerous. Asking for more, outrageous. If someone tries a toast in your honor, you must smile shyly and fight the urge to hide under the tablecloth. There was also timing to think about. you could not start eating until the hostess had lifted her fork. If you were seated next to her, you followed her every move like a polite copycat. If you finished your course early, you waited quietly, no fork wiggling, no plate moving, and if you dared to use your fingers, say for asparagus, there were very specific rules about when and how. Hint, almost never. Then there was the danger of talking across the table. Unforgivable. You may only speak to the person on your left or right, trying to shout a smart joke down the table like you are at a pub quiz. Barbaric. The old-timey table was a stage, and your show had a tight script. Here is a quirky fringe rule. Never use your knife to scoop food, no matter how tricky the dish. Your knife was for cutting only. Scooping gravy with it, especially in public, was like declaring yourself a food anarchist, and the end of dinner. Even that was regimented. The hostess would give a quiet signal, maybe a look, maybe a nod, and the ladies would rise. Yes, rise. Leaving their napkins behind, they would sweep out of the room like a bouquet of whispering ghosts, heading for the drawing room, while the men stayed for cigars and politics. Once in the drawing room, you went back to your ladylike jobs, polite, talk, quiet sighs, and acting like you for sure did not almost sneeze into a salmon mousse. Smart people still argue if old-timey dining was a celebration of grace or a fancy endurance test. One person likened it to eating while holding your breath and reciting poetry. Others say it was the only time women were expected to speak, albeit about nothing. So, tonight, as you picture yourself seated at a polished mahogany table, surrounded by flickering candlelight and 8 types of cutlery, you remember you are not here to eat. You are here to impress, and maybe, just maybe, avoid drowning in bechamel. The soup has settled, the lace gloves are peeled away, and you have made it through yet another night of social survivalism, wrapped in silk and quiet judgment. But now comes the most emotionally tiring show of all, one that needs no fans, no forks, no shy looks. Morning dot, because when someone in your life dies in old-timey England, you do not just grieve, you enter a stiff, multi-phase mourning ritual that could rule your clothing, your social life, and your calendar for up to 2.5 years. Let's say your cousin, or heaven forbid, your husband passes away. Your sadness is expected, but your mourning actions must be perfect. Starting with your clothes, you do not simply wear black, you wear mourning black, matte, not shiny, often dyed with logwood. Glossy fabrics like silk or satin, for sure not. Nothing about you is allowed to shimmer. You become a moving shadow for a widow. This time of deep mourning lasts at least 1 year and a day. During that time, your clothes are basically a fashion prison. Black bombazine, crepe veils, jet jewelry, and bonnets, so heavy with meaning they could double as tombstones. No jewelry, unless it is jet or made from human hair. Yes, hair. Mourning jewelry often had woven locks from the deceased, worn in rings, brooches, or lockets. Romantic, maybe. Creepy, for sure. But it was not just what you wore, it was what you did not do. No visiting, no going to social events, no music, no smiling too much, for sure, no dancing. And absolutely under no cases were you to be seen enjoying yourself. Even the paper changed. Letters were written on black bordered paper, and envelopes were edged in thick, sad lines. as if the sadness was leaking out onto the page. After a year, you might move into half-dash mourning. This meant you could wear gray or lavender, but not both. At once, colors were still muted, and extras stayed quiet. You might rejoin society in small, controlled ways. A quiet tea, a held-back carriage ride, a talk about lilies that does not end in tears. And yet, even in grief, the etiquette was a contest. One woman wore mourning for 3 full years after her husband's death, earning her the name the Eternal Widow. Another was criticized for going back to church only 6 months after her brother's passing. Bad behavior, even though she had tripped and fallen into mourning to begin with. Smart people still argue if this fancy grief etiquette gave comfort or cruelty. Some say it gave structure to big emotion. Others believe it was made to police women's actions, turning natural sorrow into a theater of endless denial. Either way, it was an expensive show. Mourning clothes were not cheap, and you were expected to cycle through them. Heavier fabrics for early morning, lighter ones as you went on. If you lost many relatives, one after another, say a parent, then a cousin, you could end up mourning for years, trapped in a closed cycle of unending sadness. And yes, men had mourning rules too, but theirs were simpler, shorter, and, surprise, far more forgiving. A black armband, a dark suit, maybe a small cut in dancing. And after a few months, life went on. Women, however, were expected to carry the scene burden of grief like a full-time job. To forget to mourn correctly could risk not only your social rank, but also your moral good name. A happy widow, not trustworthy. A laughing mourner, not proper. Here is a quirky, little fringe fact in some upper-class homes. The household clocks were stopped at the moment of death and not started again until the mourning time ended. Imagine telling time by grief, and funerals themselves were highly planned. You could not just show up. You had to dress right, sit in the right place, cry just enough, but not too much. Pallbearers were often picked based on looks rather than relationship. And if you fainted, social gold, so long as you did it elegantly and without harming the casket. Mourning customs went to widows' veils, which were long, face-covering crepe monsters that made eating soup or keeping depth perception almost impossible. These veils were called weepers, and some were so long they trailed behind the wearer like ghostly trains. People described the look as walking through fog with the curtains drawn. Then there is the business of coming back. Once your mourning time ended, you did not just wake up and say, well, back to peach-colored ribbons. You change slowly, one muted extra at a time. Maybe a brooch with a hint of silver, a cuff that is slightly ruffled, a bonnet ribbon that whispers, I still grieve, but I'm willing to smile at a distant cousin. And still the judgment stayed. Return too early, and people questioned your love. Wait too long, and they questioned your mental state. The balance was cruel and impossible. Some women tried to escape it entirely. A few daring souls moved abroad during mourning. Others wore black forever, not out of duty, but preference. One strange widow kept her whole house in mourning decor. Black drapes, black carpets, even black wallpaper. She hosted morning teas where guests were encouraged to wear somber tones and avoid happy topics. Yet, through all this, there was power in mourning. Power to set boundaries, to opt out of the marriage market, to claim space in a world that rarely let women define their own roles. In the crepe and jet and silence, some found freedom, albeit cloaked in sorrow. So tonight, as you imagine yourself in the flickering candlelight of a darkened drawing room, your dress is heavy, your veil drawn, the room quiet, but for the ticking of a newly started clock, your grief is visible, curated and officially approved. You sip your tea in silence, and for once, nobody expects you to smile. And now, finally, you let the veil fall away. Not the mourning kind, but the gauzy, pretend one we have worn together tonight. The corsets unfasten, the gloves slip off, the ballroom hush fades. You are no longer balancing teacups, decoding fan signals, or avoiding eye contact like it is catching. You are just here, still breathing. The strange rules, the endless posture checks, the swirling dance of old-timey expectations. It all melts into a soft, faraway fog, like a parlor mirror gently fogged over, hiding sharp edges, smoothing the outlines of a world that was at once impossibly stiff and silly theatrical. Let your shoulders sink into the mattress, now. Feel the tension go away like the final notes of a string quartet echoing down the hall. No more etiquette, no more whispered judgments, just you, weightless, drifting through velvet dark stillness. The night gets deep, the world outside quiets, the bustle of 1,000 silent rules, the creak of morning gowns, the clink of a spoon against bone china. All of it fades. What is left is quiet, safe, simple. You are no longer performing. You are resting. Let yourself give in to that slowness, that hush. Let your breathing stretch out like a curtain being drawn. You have survived the unspoken code of a whole era. Now it is time to sleep, not under the rules of society, but beneath the calm of your own soft quiet. You did well tonight. Sleep deeply now, knowing the world will still be there in the morning, just a little less corseted.